The Fan, Rochester, an Otis sports station. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
And the preseason is officially in the books.
It's a transitionary week, at least at the start of it, with the roster decisions that need to be made, and then you have practice squad players that we'll be targeting. But big picture-wise, it'll be us continuing to move forward and getting ourselves ready, making sure we're ready to go for game one.
I can't sit here and say I know what the 53 is. That's not accurate. There's still some things to be settled. We'll run through where everyone's at and make sure that we have the right team ready for Arizona week one.
Mike Danger.
I like to live dangerously, live on the edge, maybe go behind my wife's back from time to time and squander a nickel when I crush an empty water bottle. I like to live on the edge. How are you, buddy?
We're living on the edge. Gene Battaglia.
There's something called Danger Tape. I had no idea. Yeah, I'm Mike Danger for Danger Tape.
Mike Danger was a comic book.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's like
Mickey Spillane's Mike Danger.
Yeah.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Man, I hope you got the chance to soak up what is likely to be one of our final summer weekends. We're not wishing it away, but man, it was a spectacular weekend. We wrapped up the NFL preseason this weekend. We're getting closer and closer to the start of the NFL's kickoff, and we welcome you in to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. You've found Rochester's only local sports talk show, and we're glad you're with us at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app, your smart device. When you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan, we're even streaming for you on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester and Twitch at The Fan Rochester. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
And the preseason's over. Let's get to the real stuff here, Danger. We've got college football coming up this weekend. We've got Final Cup Downs coming up tomorrow. You and I are coming off a nice summer weekend.
Okay, so as a big Florida State fan, as you've dubbed me, I'm wondering, do you think DJ Uiagalelei has transferred to his 8th college at this point? Because it ain't going to work here either.
Wow, has there been anybody where the portal hasn't worked for?
He's got to be, 34, 35 at this point? Like, Trevor Lawrence isn't an old quarterback, and I think he was he there as Trevor Lawrence? Did he redshirt the year that Trevor Lawrence was a senior? I'm trying to remember his pathway here, but it feels like Uiagalelei now on his Uiagalelei, I'm sorry, on his 3rd or 4th team. And to start the season with an upset loss, yikes.
He's still 23. But then again, you're in college and you're coming in as an 18-year-old. So, yeah, he was with Clemson 2020. He just got there when Lawrence was getting out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was the successor. I forgot he was drafted by the Dodgers, too. Maybe that'll be his next team. He's got to do the baseball
do
thing.
something, man.
Yeah, I got to do the baseball thing.
It feels like every team he goes to just can't quite get over. But it was nice to know that there was some college football happening. And I know that, just scrolling through my feed over the weekend, I see one of our regulars in Thor Nystrom's just soaking it all in, just in love, so passionate about college football. We got to get him on with us at some point here to talk some college football.
Oh, my gosh, absolutely. Thor is one of the best. Happy that he's got a new home there working for Matthew Berry. And, our full slate, we'll be talking coming up Wednesday. PJ Glasser returning to the Sports Bar.
Nice.
Where we've got some – I always feel skittish about recommending anything to bet in the preseason, right? I think PJ feels the same way. Now we have some real action coming up.
Yeah, and we'll get to one of those games here coming up later on this afternoon. We'll set the table for you now with our guests joining us today in the Sports Bar. We're going to talk plenty of Buffalo Bills. Ryan Talbot, covering the team at NewYorkUpstate.com, stops by in the 4 o'clock hour.
Yeah, as far as the back end here, who has made this roster? Does that excite anybody if we're having a Joe Andreessen conversation coming up? I mean, this is where we are with the Buffalo Bills, folks. There's going to be some names on here where you might say, I don't know who that is. So with that being said, whoever is on the roster coming up on Tuesday, and I've been asking this question to you, Danger, the last 2 weeks here. How many changes will be made between 4 o'clock Tuesday for the Buffalo Bills and the actual week 1 roster next week?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. I think I said 2, and I think I might be a little high. I think 2 might be a little bit
I'm
much.
saying 3. I think
I don't know, man.
You think they like who they like?
I do. I really do.
But are they being honest with themselves? Because you and I are looking at this thinking,
well, that's the question.
Yeah, you can't do better.
Well, can you though? With when you're up against it the way they are, when you're staring at all the dead cap that they have this season, are you just tightening your belts and saying, well, we're going to have to make it work with what we have, and this is what we have, and yeah, we would love to have more depth at wide receiver, but Justin Shorter, come on. I'm sorry, Tyrell Shavers, come on down. You're the next contestant, and who will fill the void of Stephon Diggs? And I think that is where they are. We could debate that, we could discuss that, and I'm sure we will. Ryan Talbot will be stopping by in the 4 o'clock hour and joining us later this hour, about 20 minutes from now. 13 Web Sports, BuffaloPlus.com. Mike Catalan, our first conversation with him since during training camp when we were talking about this team.
You know, when they say personal, you really can't dig too much, but Josh Allen was not at the game in case you missed it.
Yeah.
Did not only play, he wasn't at the game for a personal reason.
Excused absence. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. That's a little different.
He wasn't going to play. I mean, you know, does Josh Allen need to be there for Ben DiNucci or the other guy? I don't think so. Like, what is he?
Well, I hope it wasn't just so he can get a little head start on one of these last summer weekends. He
hates Anthony Brown. I don't know. I mean, like the idea that he wasn't there is, to me, is like, well, whatever. It's fine. If it was an unexcused absence, obviously it would be a bigger story. But I feel like we saw enough of Josh Allen this preseason.
Oh, I get that. I'm just wondering, and again, it's personal, but is there anything more to the story? Because, Danger, that is unusual. That is unusual for whatever veteran. Tom Brady being one example, but he was going through a divorce at the time, so certainly understandable.
Well, man, we don't know what's going on in the personal life of Josh Allen, but maybe if there is something going on with he and Haley, I'm sure it'll come out in the tabloids soon enough. But we'll get Kettle on to see if he's got any insight, and we'll get his final thoughts on the preseason finale as the Bills fall to the Panthers in what I will remember always as the Frank Gore Jr. game. He was fantastic up until the very end when he dinged his knee and gave way to one of our favorites in the sports bar, KJ Hamler. Who knew?
So, for the preseason, if we're going to name the games, and I would agree with you, the Frank Gore Jr. game, we had the Joe Andreessen game.
Sure.
What was the Chicago game?
What was the Chicago game?
Not good.
Yeah, just leave it at that. Yeah. Well, speaking of not good, it's been an ongoing storyline, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about Tyler Bass, but we can't be feeling confident about Tyler Bass going into the regular season.
Well, and I think what you heard from Sean McDermott in the post game, that's a pivot is what we call, because, hey, when Sean McDermott last day at camp was asked this open-ended question, which player has impressed you the most? Well, there's probably a lot. And McDermott doesn't want to go there. But then you could see the gears turning in his head. I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about somebody who might need a little bit of a confidence boost, and that's Tyler Bass. And you and I and everybody else looked at each other like, really? Tyler Bass? I mean, the guy who yesterday in practice, the second from last one, didn't look all that good?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we called it for what it was. He was just pumping the tires of Tyler Bass. And then the Bears pregame, in that game as well, he makes both kicks. Okay.
Yeah.
One was in the wind. Missing Saturday from 50, and Sean McDermott saying we have to have those. And there wasn't any wind at that stadium. That was a makeable kick.
Yeah. Got to have it. You just got to have it. So a little nervous about Tyler Bass and what that might look like here through the course of the start of the season. Like, will Tyler Bass be accountable for one of the Bills' losses if he can't do his job when called on? That's a little concerning. And just a handful of it's just kind of yucky football. It's just gross, like, oh, God, blown coverage here. Oh, that miscommunication there.
Well, and for anybody that was still concerned about the wide receiver 5 battle, you cannot tell me that Tyrell Shavers made this team. He's out there, Danger, and DiNucci actually throws a good ball, and it's, oh gosh, you got to come. You got to come down with that.
Was it
ball.
A good ball? Was it just a step too far in front of him?
No, he's got to catch that.
I think he's on the team. I think he's making the team. Even with that, I think.
Are you saying that to bait me, Mike
No,
Danger?
I'm really not. I think they carry 6, and I think Shavers is on this team. And that play, you're right. That looked like it should have been an easy touchdown. But what Shavers did on that play was he left his guy in the dust. I mean, he ran a route that broke some ankles, and you're right. That should have been an easy touchdown. But it's Ben DiNucci in week 2 with this team and Tyrell Shavers. And I think Shavers, because we've heard as much as we've heard, and we've seen him perform, I think he makes this team.
Well, I think that MVS, because it's still week to week, he goes on the IR. We'll table that decision for sometime in September, roughly, which means, okay, then you do need.
What's the maximum you can put on IR to start the season? Is it
the maximum to call back prior to tomorrow is 2?
Okay. So would you do that with MVS or would you do that with Bale Inspector? Because you're going to do it with Matt Milano.
And we're assuming, wow, okay, this is a tough one.
Right? Because
we're assuming Trubisky's going to be.
I think Trubisky's fine.
Yeah.
I think Trubisky will be the backup quarterback. I think Ben DiNucci's practice squad fodder. I think, when you see KJ Hamler in garbage time at the end of the fourth quarter of the last preseason, it's like, oh, I love the guy, but he's not making the team. He's on the practice squad.
Or nothing. To answer your question, all right, let's start with the easy stuff. You're putting Matt Milano on injured reserve.
Right.
And then he's going to come back.
Yep.
Danger, the answer, I believe it's Bale Inspector.
I agree.
Wow.
And you know what happens if in that scenario? Not only do you carry 6 receivers, MVS, Tyrell Shavers, Mac Hollins.
Oh, okay. So you're saying MVS doesn't get cut. He's on the 53. Yeah. He's just not available.
I'm saying they're cutting. I'm saying they're keeping 6.
Okay.
I think they're going with 6 receivers, and I think MVS is one of those guys. And I think in the scenario that we just laid out, if you designate both Milano and Spector to return, Joe Andreessen's making this team as well. Not practice squad. He's on the final 53. This is what we're being fed. We're being fed a steady dose of Tyrell Shavers and Joe Andreessen. And we have to be fed this because they can't afford talent. They can't afford it this year.
They can if they want to. You can always afford talent. But again, you can just examine what is going to be on the wire. You can't tell me that there is going to be a wide receiver that's going to be released by 4 p.m. tomorrow. And again, I put the disclaimer out there. If they're a veteran, they get to choose the team. But if this is somebody in their first contract, that you wouldn't bring them in. Receiver, yes. Safety, perhaps. Linebacker, can we all nod? Yes. I know Joe Andreessen, he's really this feel-good story, and it's fantastic. He's good for the practice squad. You mean to tell me Andreessen in pass coverage against a tight end is ready for this league?
I mean, I don't know if you watched the Pittsburgh preseason game, Gene, but he was ready for everything in that game. He was a Hall of Famer in that game. He's making the team. He's going to make the team. Watch. He's going to make the team. Shavers is going to make the team. MVS will make the team. Like guys that we
when you say make the team, though.
Final 53.
Are we talking 53, 4 o'clock tomorrow? Or are we talking
No, I'm saying
1?
53, 4 o'clock tomorrow.
I think that, 4 o'clock tomorrow, it's not, again, I'm repeating myself here, but Andreessen would be a candidate for something like that. Wow. Oh, my gosh.
But now, it's not all doom and gloom, right? Like, the Bills have been, the McDermott Bean era Bills have been in spots like this before where they're kind of like, we're kind of up against it here with the dead cap and we're walking away from some bad deals that maybe we wish we didn't do.
Yeah, namely year one.
Right.
It's like we've gone full circle here.
Right.
And they were a wild card that year one. They didn't have Josh Allen. They had Tyrod.
That's right.
So, again, it's not all doom and gloom, and I'm going to point this, and yes, we're very critical of Sean McDermott. This show, more so than others, because we like to look at things objectively. I'm objectively saying he's the best coach in the division. Best head coach in the division, Sean McDermott. Best quarterback in the division. Do I really need to give you the answer on that?
Yeah, of course.
So based on those two things, Danger, and I still think you have enough parts of the engine. Yeah, you've been gutted, no doubt about it, but there still is enough top-end talent on this team.
Define top-end talent. Is Greg Rousseau top-end talent? Because I think Brandon Beane knows if you want to be a contender, you've got to pay guys. You got to go out and you got to pay guys. That's why he brought in Von Miller. It's why he traded for Stephon Diggs. Top-end talent doesn't exist on this roster. It's Josh Allen.
It's an offense that what we saw last year, I'll put it this way. They won. They closed the season out with 6 straight wins.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing so, got into the postseason, and it was the world without Diggs. So let's just take it from that standpoint. That offense looked a lot different last year. Defensively, are there concerns? Yes. Yes. How can there not be?
Well, we're talking about Joe Andreessen and DeMar Hamlin. I mean, they're nice stories, don't get me wrong, but this is not the kind of top-end talent that I'm talking about. Where's Poyer? Where's Hyde? They're gone. Where's Milano? He's out. Like, the guys that made the defense what the defense was. I know you could say, oh, Milano didn't play last year either, and the defense was patchwork last year. I mean, they got results, but you don't want to have to live through that year in and year out. You want talent. You want guys that are going to be out there, be available, be healthy, and contribute in meaningful ways. And maybe this is the year for Greg Rousseau. Maybe you see him take that quote-unquote next step. You saw A.J. Epineza make a step in that direction, but what did they pay A.J. Epineza? They didn't pay A.J. Epineza like he's a top-tier talent. He's not. He's not.
No, but they paid Ed Oliver that way.
Yes,
and so
you expect him to have a better season even than he had last year, which you obviously would say would be his best season. So I have concerns. And my concerns don't really come from anything that I've seen on the field. My concerns come from looking at this roster, trying to look at it objectively, recognizing that they're up against it, and they kind of have to work with less than optimal situations here with players that aren't as talented as what they've had in years past. There's some talent. There's obviously still talent on this team. I'm not saying that they're not talented. You do have the best quarterback in the division. You have Sean McDermott, but I don't know that in 2024, as we think of Sean McDermott and we think of Josh Allen and we think of everything that this team has been through, that we're not looking at anything other than a modern-day version of Phillip Rivers and Marty Shotgun. Gino, we're wasting his best years. This year, if this year is not, I mean, any year that they don't go to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl is a wasted year, in my opinion. I know that some people would argue that, there's steps to it and it's not a failure. But, look, you start the season, you want to win the Super Bowl. And if you're saying, oh, we just don't have a chance. No.
Well, all right. Can I frame it a different way? I'm going to frame it this way. And it's the worst-case scenario, and that is, what if you didn't have Josh Allen? I think that tells you about the rest of the roster. With the Bengals last year, they, for half the season, roughly, or whatever it was, and when he was out there at the end, Joe Burrow wasn't there. Okay, they missed the playoffs, but you know what? They were in it until last week.
Yeah.
I'll give them credit on that.
Were they an eight-win team?
8-win team. Mm-hmm. Yep, so one win away.
No, because everybody in that division had 9 wins. Everybody in that division finished over 500, so they actually were a 9-win team last year.
Yep, correct. Okay. So the Bengals, that's what they were without their quarterback. I'll go to Baltimore. It wasn't last year. Go back 2 years ago where Lamar Jackson, whatever was going on, wasn't out there available. Tyler Huntley, they got in. Where would this Bills team be without Josh Allen? It's not a first place team. It's not a winning team.
They're picking in the top 10.
They're picking in the top 5.
Yeah, probably.
I mean that's where I want to argue these points. That it doesn't look that bad, but we are pinning our hopes to, well, if this guy steps forward, Shakir steps forward, Ed Oliver.
It's a lot of potential. They have so much potential. I don't know. Talent wins. Potential.
What do we feel comfortable? Can we start here? What do we feel good about on this team? Taron Johnson, okay, all pro. No doubt about it. Okay, that would be one. What else do we feel good about? The tight ends?
Deion Dawkins, I feel good about.
Deion Dawkins.
Okay. I feel good about Deion Dawkins. I feel good about Dalton Kincaid. I feel good about Josh Allen. I like Khalil Shakir. But Khalil Shakir, is who he is, right? Like Khalil Shakir is not the kind of he's not CeeDee Lamb. He's not getting the record-breaking deal. He's not Jamar Chase. He's not Steph Diggs. He's not that kind of talent. He's good, but in the NFL, good they can catch up with good pretty quickly.
And this is another point too, and I'm gonna liken it to golf. Golf. Sometimes you're gonna hit a lot of bad shots, but you don't remember the bad shots. You remember the good shots. Mm-hmm. You remember when you put it 6 inches away from the pin, and what a drive that was. You remember the good times. And when we talk about the 2023 Buffalo Bills. That was a team, Mike Danger. It's after Thanksgiving, and they're 500.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so we forgot all about all the bad shots.
I have not forgotten. I have not forgotten. And there are parts of me that still feel today the way I felt then, because I don't know that really anything has changed. Certainly, the coach is not going to change who he is. He shouldn't. That's who he is. And he's a good coach. He's a good coach. You could argue he's the best coach in the division, and I would listen to that. But I don't know that it's good enough to get you to where you ultimately want to be. And I worry that when it's all said and done and we do the moratorium on the 2024 season, we'll look at it as another year wasted in Josh Allen's prime. Ugh. Sorry, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom on a Monday. You know what we need? We need Mike Catalana to lift our spirits. You think he might lift our spirits a little bit?
Oh, gee, that was really tough for your Mets there. They're falling out of it. You're going to see who's leading the division. Note, I am not going to bring up baseball.
Good. Good.
I'm not bringing it up.
Good. Now you have, if you're listening, now you have a reason to actually stick around, because Gene isn't going to bring up the Mets to Catalana and expose himself to torture and punishment at the hands of the Rochester sports icon. 13 Wham Sports Director, BuffaloPlus.com. We'll talk some Buffalo Bills with Mike Catalana next on The Fan.
update.
Final cuts coming up 4 p.m. The deadline across the NFL. Head coach Sean McDermott of the Buffalo Bills says he likes the work the guys have put in.
I mean, these guys have really worked hard since the spring, several months. The effort's been outstanding. I'm extremely proud of each and every one of them, and they're going to be successful. Whether they play here, play somewhere else, do something else, I'm convinced of that.
13 Wham and Buffalo Plus's Mike Catalana joining us next here in the Sports Bar. One note from the NFL, CeeDee Lamb gets a new contract, 4 years. It's the second most money ever for a non-quarterback. Dylan Cruz makes his Major League debut tonight for Washington as they host the New York Yankees. Rochester Red Wings off tonight. Next stop on the road trip, Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Pull up a stool and join us. 585-866-4FAN. 866-4326. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The preseason is in the books. Now we look ahead to Cutdown Day tomorrow. The deadline, 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. We welcome in Mike Catalana, 13 Wham Sports Director. BuffaloPlus.com. It wasn't a very inspiring preseason, Mike, and I'm a little bit concerned going into the regular season that there's a lack of just overall talent that we haven't seen in a while on this roster. But let's start with something that we know is a certain, like Tyler Bass is the kicker of this team going into week one, at least as of right now. That's what we know. How concerned are you that early in this season, with Tyler Bass kind of struggling the way we've seen him struggle in practice, that could be a liability for this team here early on?
Yeah, guys, I've been concerned about Bass since the end part of last year, and then, of course, it played itself out even in the last game. I watched him at practice like you guys did, especially at camp. Just didn't look like he was hitting the ball right. And I've had people respond to me and say, well, he made, what did he make? 10 of his last 12. He made his kicks in the preseason except for the one at the end. He's just not hitting the ball right. He just isn't. And he had an issue with a kickoff. And he went wide right. It wasn't just wide right on that kick. I mean, we're talking about they didn't bring in any competition for him. They gave him the spot. Said, go ahead, prove that you're back. And he didn't take it. He's still there. I'd say in part the contract, because you don't want to just jump and cut the guy if it's going to end up hurting you. And he's shown the ability. But honestly, when the way McDermott answered the question the other night about Bass, he's like, it's got to make that kick. I think it's a real issue. And to your point, Danger, it's like, I still think they're going to be a good team, but the margin for error gets smaller and smaller when you have not just different talent, maybe lesser in some spots. You can't afford to have the kicker missing makeable kicks for you, and that's what he's been.
Yeah, the tough part about this, Mike, is all right, they decide to move on. It's not that easy. And I know, Dan Fates and others say the salary cap is a myth. The dead cap hit for a kicker would be $7.3 million.
Yuck.
I don't even know if they have that much, Mike. You'd have to go restructure just to make a move at a kicker. I mean, just keep your fingers crossed, or whatever other superstition might be the play here, and hopefully Bass
figures
this out.
Something. They cut Stephon Diggs and took a massive cap hit. If they think he's not the kicker for them, they will cut him. Teams do not, they aren't so beholden to the salary cap that they won't make moves. If Brandon Beane thinks we need a new kicker, this guy's not cutting it, he will be gone, and they'll take the hit. I'm telling you, this is what they'll do. I mean, you're going to sit there with a guy if he's – now, I think it might give him a longer leash, and he could get his act together early in the year. I just think that they are concerned about it. And I would not be stunned to see a kicker on the practice squad after cuts and all are made, that they pick up a kicker, put him there, and see what they've got. Because, this is not he struggled a little bit at the end of camp. No. Struggled at the end of last year, missed a makeable kick. And in the NFL now, 50-yarders are like 40-yarders used to be. You got to make them. In this league, you got to make them, and he's not doing it.
All right, so let's talk about tomorrow, 4 o'clock, the deadline to trim down to 53. Mike, there's a handful of positional battles that we think we might have some clarity on. I'm curious if there's somebody on the outside looking in tomorrow that might be a surprise in your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it. I still think Joe Andreessen's going to make the roster.
Agreed.
I think he's going to make it early. Bale Inspector's hurt. He's been hurt a lot. He was a 7th-round pick. I think they like a lot of what they've seen in Andreessen. Was he as good the other day as he was, in Pittsburgh? No, but I think we're talking about backup linebacker, special teamer. He's healthy. He can run. It doesn't mean, listen, you know the way this goes. He could make the roster Tuesday, and 2 weeks into the season, he's cut and brought back on the practice squad. Like, that's the way it can go. But if you're thinking about a guy like that, I think he makes the team. I think Tyrell Shavers makes the team. Because I'm of the belief, and I don't know if you guys are too, that I think Hardy is going to be the kick returner, and I think he might even have a backup role in some way. He's shown a decent amount in terms of as a defensive back.
Yep.
Even though he's small, he's a tough kid, and I don't know. Sometimes when you look, you're trying to figure where these other spots are. I think they're going to have to do something at backup quarterback. I don't know if Mitch Trubisky is going to be healthy to be the backup to start the year. He didn't look great just walking around in Buffalo the other day. So that could be a place where they've got to pick up another guy. And then who knows what they do with the quarterbacks, whether Ben DiNucci is around as the third guy or they get somebody else in. I think that's really where it is. I don't see a lot of other, really huge battles in either line of scrimmage. I really don't see anything else.
Do you have Lael Collins making the team?
I think so because of his versatility in the league. But, that's one of those things that we always joke about. We don't know what they really think because he hasn't been a prominent player with the Bills, obviously. So I may be sitting here thinking, yeah, I think he'll be on the roster, and they're thinking he's gone. Like they'll rather keep a younger player.
Right.
So that'll be interesting to see. And as you guys know too, because of some injuries at linebacker, injuries at safety, they could be keeping some extra players in one spot or another. That it changes a few weeks into the year. And the whole practice squad thing, I'm normally not a guy who's sitting there with every player going. If they cut him, somebody's picking him up. Because we know how this usually goes. But actually, I do think if Andreessen gets cut, I think he would get picked up. I think he's shown enough that he would get picked up. And that spot is a pretty easy plug and play for teams. Basically, you're a special teams guy and a backup linebacker. So I don't know if Shavers would. He showed a good amount. But I think there's other players that, like Bale Inspector, I think they could get back on the practice squad if they released him.
We're talking to 13 Wham Buffalo Plus Mike Catalana as one other position that we're all kind of scratching our head. What is the plan at safety here, Mike? Certainly Rapp is going to be one of the starters. Did Mike Edwards, is he going to have enough work ready or not? Is he actually going to see significant time coming up, knowing that he missed most of training camp and pretty much all of the spring? And Hamlin and everybody else, certainly Cole Bishop, I'm not sure what his timeline is either for a return here.
Yeah, I think Bishop would be the one you'd probably hold off on, only because he has no experience. I mean, he's never played the NFL, and he missed that time. These guys will be back practicing. We'll find out at what level. I think some of that depends on what Hamlin's injury is. Keep in mind, as you guys know, you start out on Sunday, then you come right back with a game on Thursday. So that's quick, especially coming off a hamstring. Both guys really are. You got him and Edwards. Edwards was out there pregame running around a little bit in uniform. So I would think he's going to practice pretty fully with these opportunities that he gets. But DeMar certainly has the snaps, at least for early in the year. So if he's healthy, I guess I would say it would be Rapp and DeMar and Edwards as a backup. I think eventually Edwards is the starter next to next to Rapp. And I think at some point, we've talked about it before where they go to that dime package where they bring in, last year it was a third safety, and really they put Poyer in that spot. I could see a time when Cole Bishop ends up being that dime back that they bring in, a little bigger, a little better in run support, and you play with one linebacker. So I think they'll all have roles, but if you were playing a game today and he was healthy, I think DeMar probably starts because he's had that many snaps.
Mike, what about the health of MVS? Do we know the severity of that neck injury? What was the latest that we heard late last week from Sean McDermott? Do you think he's out there week one? Was that neck injury not severe enough to force any sort of long-term absence?
Wasn't that interesting that Sean actually gave somewhat news on injuries, where he basically said he didn't think anybody outside of Milano was out for the opening game.
Right, but your eyes are seeing something different, right? I mean, you're talking about Trubisky hobbling all over the place with a bum knee.
Right. And then with MVS, honestly, I mean, here's where you're making this decision. I think he's going to make the roster. And the question is, who gets put on IR that's not ready for 4 weeks, if that's the case? My guess is MVS would probably be the type of player that would be on the roster, inactive at the beginning of the year if he's still not healthy. That's big decisions they have to make. And that's where they, when we talk about their actions telling you what they really think, that's when they tell us what they really think about how injured that guy is. And it makes sense to just leave him out for 4 games because he's not going to be able to do anything. I don't think they want to cut him. We've talked about Allen has liked him. It's weird the way camp went. He just didn't do a lot, but I think his skill set is unique in this offense as a guy who can run down the field. I mean, you got to catch the ball. That's something that would be nice. Like kickers got to make the kick and wide receivers got to catch the ball. But my guess is he's on the roster, but likely doesn't have a role in the early part of the year.
What about guys who are not on the Bills roster right now? They're actually on another team's roster. For example, I see Kansas City bringing back Juju Smith-Schuster, who was let go, and good for them. He's got familiarity. And reading how Trent Sherfield is on the bubble in Minnesota, are those the types of moves that maybe if you're looking waiver wire, not necessarily talent, but guys that might have some familiarity with what's going on here in Buffalo?
I don't see Trent Sherfield coming back. I mean, he really never could come up with a role last year. And now, I mean, they have players at wide receiver. When we can argue about the length of talent, honestly, I think every guy in that room now is more talented as a wide receiver than Trent Sherfield. And he's an okay player, but, he did make that nice catch in the Miami game when he pulled in the deflected pass for the touchdown, but he really didn't have a role last year. I don't think there was any thought of really bringing him back. It's interesting. I don't necessarily – I guess there's always a possibility. Like I saw Jahan Dotson, the Eagles ended up picking him up. He's a talented guy, been around. Like if they were really looking, could have made a move for him. I think it's a repeat of some of the skill set that they do have on this team. I mean, I'm going under the idea that Curtis Samuel will be ready to go. You got Khalil Shakir. You've got Keon Coleman, and they're going to play a lot of 2 tight end sets. So, I mean, to suit up and get ready to go in week 1, I don't know. Honestly, I don't really think they're going to be making some substantial move at wide receiver. But, you like you were saying, you don't know who pops free. It's interesting for Kansas City. Like they've had a weird offseason. They're really pushing the Xavier Worthy role on the team, at least in camps down there. But, Juju Smith-Schuster, it's fine. I can see why they did something like that. But I don't know if there's anybody that the Bills will be bringing back. Gabe's not going to get cut in Jacksonville, is he?
It's funny, Mike, because if you would have asked me at the end of training camp, what's the number? How many players that aren't on this roster right now will the Bills sign after cutdown day? And I think my answer was 2. 2 felt like, that feels about right. And if you're asking me today, I say none. I say they've spent the last 2 weeks convincing us and convincing themselves that guys like Andreessen and guys like Shavers they don't need to go out because these are the guys that they have and these are the guys that they're going to work with rather than bring an outsider in.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're talking about like Shavers could be on the roster, but not active of the, once you put in the active players for the game.
Sure.
Same could be, I guess, with a guy like Andreessen would probably play because he'd play special teams. It depends on how they look at it. I'm not saying there wouldn't be guys there. Like, and listen, I think they need another quarterback.
Yeah.
I didn't like the Trubisky signing when they brought him back. I heard somebody saying that, he'd done well when he was here before. Not really. He never played. And then he ends up going to Pittsburgh, and that didn't go well. And now he's back. And I don't see I didn't like the signing. And it's a 2-year deal, and I got to look at the numbers to see. But I think they probably are in need of another quarterback. And they could make a deal. Like, they love vibes in the quarterback room. So there's a chance Kyle Allen is back because he's probably going to get cut by the Steelers. And if they need somebody early, there's a guy who knows what's going on. But if you're sitting here looking for like, wow, this guy got cut and the Bills are going to pick him up, not exactly sure what position that would be. I think you're right. I think maybe they have convinced themselves that they're comfortable with the roster they're going to have, but I don't see a major move. I don't see a major move in any of these spots. I think it's all just on the fringes of what this roster is going to be.
If they're going to go get another quarterback, Mike, I would hope there'd be a better option other than Kyle Allen, but you brought up the familiarity. Is that maybe flaw is too strong a word, but is that something the Bills lean on maybe just a little too much rather than going getting the best guy? We're getting somebody who's good, but certainly knows the system.
Listen, I think Josh is at the point now with his skill set and the amount of years he's been in the league. I want to see them have a real developmental quarterback that could show something, that could come in. Not Jake Fromm, because I didn't like him physically for the job in any way. Honestly, I would like to. They keep going this route of bringing in a veteran, good guy behind Josh and all. And I always stress this, and I've stressed it to you guys. Your backup quarterback, you hope he never plays. It's not about if Josh Allen's out for the season, he's going to carry you to the Super Bowl. It's if Josh is out 2 games, can he come in and get one of them for you? I don't have a lot of faith in Trubisky. I didn't have a ton in Kyle Allen either. It's like I see these guys and I think to myself, I'm only telling you what I think they'll do.
Yeah.
I want to see, and I'm not saying Anthony Brown that they just brought in, but I like a different skill set, that could really do something in the short term for you if you needed it. And I guess we can all wait to see. There's going to be guys maybe cut loose. Every team is going to try to hold on to players and then say, what do we do at the deadline? Can we make a deal? Can we trade somebody? And then they can't, and they end up cutting them loose. But I would be on the lookout for somebody else if I was them. But I don't know how aggressive they'll be.
It's a weird feeling, Mike, because you still have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You have a coach who's won the division consecutive years, and I don't know. I don't feel great going into this season. I think a lot of Bills fans are being realistic and don't feel great going into the season. So what, in your opinion, should we feel good about? What do you feel good about when you're talking about this team and that goes beyond the head coach and the quarterback?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a big two. And then I do look at it and I think the offense will be okay. I don't think it's going to be spectacular, but I think Allen himself I don't necessarily know if he elevates his teammates. He just elevates the team because he will make plays for you. And I do have faith, you say McDermott, I do have faith in the way they coach players up. I mean, this team, it's funny. We were talking about how they lose a game or two every year that they have no business losing. Like they lost to New England, to Mac Jones. They lost that game down in Jacksonville. They lose these games. But somehow they figured out a way to still win the division and be a high seed. Like, look at what happened last year. Yeah. They've found a way. I do think they have talent. Like, I'm not sitting here looking at them and going, wow, this is a lousy roster. I would say top to bottom, I think I probably like the Jets roster ahead of the Bills. Mm-hmm. but I like the quarterback a lot more in Buffalo than I like the guy with the Jets. He's got the trophy or the MVPs and all that, but Allen's a much better football player than him right now, and I think that makes a bigger difference. And they obviously have a superior coaching staff. I'm not a big fan of Saleh and what they do with the Jets. And Miami's Miami, so it starts in the division. I mean, if you're the Dolphins, they're coming off with a lot of injuries. They have the flash, there's no doubt about it, but I mean, honestly, we'll see what happens opening game. I think that'll dictate what a lot of people think. But when they take the field down there on that Thursday night, you're telling me you don't have faith in Josh Allen to go down there and win in Miami again because he always does it. So if you're a Dolphins fan, you're hoping that flips. I think the Jets are their bigger challenger this year because they've played the Bills really tough. They've beaten them, it feels like, every year. And now they do have a legitimate quarterback.
Well, Mike, you've stressed to us in the past, it's like when you play teams means so much. And, that is going to be a tough game that Thursday night. It's a short week. You're going down to Miami. Who knows what the weather will be like. You just look ahead. Miami, Jacksonville, a potential playoff team with a quarterback who could make some plays here. And then that 3-game road trip where you get Baltimore, Houston, the Jets here. When you kind of take a look at the picture of that opening, is it making you more imperative that the Bills got to get this one against Arizona week 1?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and listen, opening day, we all know. Like, opening day, you don't really know what teams are going to do. You don't know what happens. Somebody's got something figured out on this new kickoff. It's Kyler Murray running around, and you can't figure out how to stop him. Harrison goes – you don't know. I'm telling you, you could win the game by a point, 3, 6, 20, whatever it is. You got to figure out a way to win the opener. And then you play – you play a little, you know the way it is. You play a little looser when you go to Miami. It's obviously a division game and all that, but it's a quick turnaround. But they do feel good when they go down there. And then you come home. Like, at some point, you're going to have to win these games. That stretch is really, really tough. That is 3 in a row. I mean, two of the teams really physical, I would say, of the 3. And the other one is Houston. So that's a really tough stretch. So, you got to get a few wins here early. Let's just say the 2 home games before you get into that so that, you don't put yourself so far behind, because I think right now that's one of those, right? That stretch is like, got to get 1. It would be awesome to get 2. And then, go ahead, wish for all 3. But I think that's the way you look at that 3-game stretch when we get to October.
Mike, what are you, Dan, and Jenna working on at BuffaloPlus.com here in a 13 Wham Sports to get us ready for that Week 1 matchup against Arizona?
So we just we'll be posting today. We do a segment called You Ask, We Answer, so people ask questions. A lot of the stuff was on some of roster manipulation and things into the year, so that'll be up later today. As soon as they make their cuts and we get an idea of the initial 53-man roster, we'll be doing our podcast. And then as we get to the season, we've got an interview coming up. We always do a piece with somebody from the other city. So we've got a guy in Arizona who's covered the Cardinals. That'll be the beginning of the week. So, our normal week for Buffalo Plus on the YouTube channel is probably 5 to 6 different pieces each week. So, we're going to put up as much content as we can. Always pregame, always postgame. They make this old man work a little bit. So that's what we'll be doing. And really it's now, but certainly it really ramps up once the season, the week leading into the season.
Danger, I texted Mike on Friday and I said, hey, would you have time? And it's like, yeah, between that and I'm also serving as the batting instructor for the Phillies. Well, what do you know? Back-to-back games of 11 runs scored for your Phillies, Mike. You're doing a great job.
I think they had 40-some hits since – you know what I just said? I looked at what George Costanza told, Jeter back in that episode of Seinfeld, and they followed what I was doing. So Philly started hitting, Mets choked away a game. It's just I mean, God, that had to hurt yesterday, didn't it? Up 2-0 in the.
I want to be
eighth
sympathetic
inning.
to my co-host.
wait.
He said he wasn't going to bring up baseball to you, and what did he do? He brought up baseball to you. Now here we are.
I was being complimentary, and that guy they lost to is going to be the NL Rookie of the Year. I mean, Merrill's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, he hit the homer after he'd given up the lead. Hey, the Phillies got a stretch here, so they've got Houston. They're at home, but they've got Houston. Then they've got Atlanta. Like, there's still a lot of games left, but, man, I felt for you there because I thought, the little Mets, they were getting close, and they were singing their song, and, they got any other McDonald's characters?
Well, it's the Hawk Tua girls' fault. If they don't make the postseason, they're blaming Hawk Tua.
That's classless, Mike. Classless. I can't.
And think about that. Really? Really? What has happened to New York sports? My God, the Giants with Tommy Cutlets and you guys with that person throwing out the first pitch.
The Knicks, Mike. Just get ready for the winter. That's what we can look forward to.
Yes, second round exit. That's what you can look forward to.
Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. Have a great week.
Anytime, guys.
Thanks, Mike Catalana, 13 Web Sports, BuffaloPlus.com. That's some great insight there from the icon on cut down day tomorrow.
I think he's right about the quarterback. Like, if Allen goes down, the season's over. No, that's not what we're talking about. Like, if Allen misses a few games, are we feeling good about Trubisky?
Can you get a win?
I'm really concerned. Like, we got our guy, Kyle Allen. Come on
Terrible.
down. No.
I don't think you're going to get better. I mean, that's why expansion in the NFL feels like it can't happen because there's such a scarcity of talent at quarterback. And there are so many teams that think they have their guy that don't have their guy. And those guys they're not the dude because they don't have the ability, and then they're just broken forever. And we talk about Sam Darnold, I'm thinking to myself, all right, Sam Darnold's in a situation where this is the best situation he's been in as a pro. An opportunity for him to resurrect his career and make us forget about all of the bad throws and all of the bad games and all of the bad vibes around him from his time in Carolina and his time, of course, with the Jets. But there's a part of me that's like, well, he might just not be the dude, and that's as good as it's going to get for Sam Darnold.
Yeah, in this time of year, everything looks great. We're going to have 4 rookie starters. I do believe it's going to be Drake May in New England. Okay, so with the injury there. So you get May, you get Daniels, you get Caleb Williams, you get Bo Nix.
Mm-hmm.
None of the 4 have really faced what a defense will present to them. None of them tasted any adversity coming off a loss. So where everything looks great now, I mean, of those 4, how many really do stick?
I would even say for teams that believe that they have, like, Anthony Richardson might be spectacular. He could be the second coming of Cam Newton, or he could be really, really bad. He could be an absolute train wreck, a roller coaster ride, because he's not good at throwing a football. The Raiders seem to believe that Gardner Minshew is going to find another gear. Good luck with that. Like, maybe these guys are just Mitch Trubisky's best days are behind him. His days of winning football games are behind him. He is a backup here and forevermore. And if you get called on, I don't have confidence that he's a guy that can get you a win over a 2-game stretch or a 3-game stretch. And that really should be the test, right? Like, could you see that guy going in, leading a huddle, leading an offense, and getting you a W or 2 during an absence? And the Bills don't have that on their roster. But I feel like we have this conversation every year about backup quarterbacks, too. It's an evergreen topic this time of year.
Yeah, and, one of these years, you remember the Press Your Luck game show?
Yeah, to get the whammy. No whammies.
Yeah, like no whammies.
No
You're like,
whammies.
Oh, yeah. It's like the Bills have been fortunate in that regard.
We're going to talk to Ryan Talbot, more Buffalo Bills talk coming up in the 4 o'clock hour as well. Some more thoughts to share, including there's what did I see here? I saw that not just the CeeDee Lamb extension.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this news is great for CeeDee Lamb. There's one team that this is not great news for. And I'm kind of sitting here pointing and laughing because it's
It was preventable. Is that what you're saying?
Of course,
Yeah.
of course, it was preventable. We'll discuss that, and we've got some other things around the NFL, some weird things going on around the NFL. Whether you're talking about rule changes, or vetoes to rule changes about emergency quarterbacks. While we're on that topic, you've got what was this thing that our regular Chris sent us from Poland Cars?
Oh, yeah. Apparently, you can buy bonds in the stadium now.
Oh, okay. Well, we
Great.
could talk about that.
Fantastic. Oh,
I know you have a week one game as
like
well.
a week one pick too, and we got to talk a little bit about Aaron Judge too.
Oh, he's spectacular.
Oh,
yeah, we'll get into that and more. Next, Ryan Talbot joining us here in just about a half an hour or so. You can join us at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
It's that time of year. The final cuts coming up across the NFL. 4 p.m. the deadline across the league tomorrow. Head coach Sean McDermott, the Buffalo Bills, says tough decisions away.
At the end of the day, what's best for the team, I know Brandon and I believe this, is fitting it together, right? And, making decisions that are best both short-term and long-term for the good of the club overall.
Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, will join us later this hour. We'll talk some Buffalo Bills football. Around the league, CeeDee Lamb has a new deal. The Cowboys wide receiver gets a 4-year, $136 million extension. Makes him the second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Baseball tonight, up from the Red Wings and the majors. Dylan Cruz makes his major league debut. Washington hosting the Yankees. Nestor Corda is going for New York. The Wings off tonight. They're in Scranton tomorrow. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
And the preseason is officially in the books.
It's a transitionary week, at least at the start of it, with the roster decisions that need to be made, and then you have practice squad players that we'll be targeting. But big picture-wise, it'll be us continuing to move forward and getting ourselves ready, making sure we're ready to go for game one.
I can't sit here and say I know what the 53 is. That's not accurate. There's still some things to be settled. We'll run through where everyone's at and make sure that we have the right team ready for Arizona week 1.
Mike Danger.
I like to live dangerously, live on the edge, maybe go behind my wife's back from time to time and squander a nickel when I crush an empty water bottle. I like to live on the edge. How are you, buddy?
We're living on the edge. Gene Battaglia.
There's something called Danger Tape. I had no idea. Yeah, I'm Mike Danger for Danger Tape.
Mike Danger was a comic book.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's like
Mickey Spillane's Mike Danger.
Yeah.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
We're going to talk Buffalo Bills with Ryan Talbot at NewYorkUpstate.com. He's stopping by the sports bar here in about 15, 20 minutes or so. Mike Catalana, gracious with his time from 13 Wham Sports, Buffalo Plus. Stopping by last hour to share some thoughts and observations as the preseason is in the books, and we look forward to tomorrow at 4 o'clock, the deadline for teams to get down to their final 53-man roster.
Yeah, and what surprises, if any, do we expect out of Buffalo? Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, will be joining us later this hour as we may get word today, but I'm not holding my breath. Brandon Beane, by the way, has called a press conference Wednesday at 2:30, so you'll be able to hear that in One Bills Live, I would assume, assuming he's not going late, which tells me, Danger, all right, then the Bills are going to take every second they can, as they should. My anticipation is actually 4 o'clock. All right, they'll let everybody know at 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah. How you feeling after everything that we've seen so far this summer? That's the question.
It's how you feeling? You're excited for football?
Yeah. Are you excited for this team? Are you excited about what 2024 could look like for the Buffalo Bills?
I think part of it, too, is because we talk about different biases. I don't know what bias this is, but as compared to last year or the year before that or the year before that, no, it's a little less, right?
It feels somber almost.
Right, like the gap we all acknowledge. We're not dumb. Like the gap in the division has closed. How could it not? Okay, but I'm still saying, wait a second. They didn't show you anything this preseason. Really, they didn't. Like on offense or on defense, we look at the player personnel, Danger, and that's where the cause for concern is.
Right.
So I think you're starting 22. If everybody stays healthy, you might just be okay there. Good enough to win the division. But if we're talking about Joe Andreessen, Tyrell Shavers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what Catalana said last hour makes a lot of sense, that when you're void of the kind of talent that this roster has had the last few years, your margins for error become razor thin, and you can't afford to make mistakes. And these guys have this added pressure to their game. And, man, I had a good time on Friday night. We were in the neighborhood. We were doing bourbon and cigars. And
I forgot to ask you,
talking about the Bills. And I was more like interested in hearing what everybody else was saying, because we're close to it. And because we're close to it, we can get caught up in the hype train from time to time. Like, oh, this is a player that you need to know more about. No, did you hear what Sean McDermott said at camp about Tyrell Shavers? And wow, what a game by Joe Andreessen and blah, blah, blah. I was surprised that everybody, I think, views it for what it is. This team on paper is the third best team in the AFC East. On paper. I can't hear an objective argument that the Jets or the Dolphins are worse off on paper than the Bills. When you factor in the injuries, the departures to the defense, it's been discussed ad nauseum. We're talking about guys like Joe Andreessen and DeMar Hamlin. Nice stories that we're hitching our hope to, and that's why I think we've got a problem. There's no Hyde, there's no Poyer, there's no Milano, and on over-the-hill Von Miller. It's kind of gross. And I hear you because I know what you're going to say. The Bills have Josh Allen. He doesn't have anybody to throw the ball to. I mean, Shakir would be a nice story. We're projecting on hope and on potential. Meanwhile, Rodgers is a former MVP. He's loaded with weapons. Tua has a couple of incredible statistical seasons under his belt now. He's loaded with weapons. Buffalo has Mac Hollins. On paper, they're the third best team in the AFC East. And the thing that worries me, and I think others are worried about this as well, is that Josh Allen is seeing his prime years wasted. It feels like a Marty Schottenheimer, Phillip Rivers story playing out here in Buffalo. And I know that for some, that's enough for their team to be in the mix, or as we say here in the sports bar, farting around come playoff time. But I think that's the best case scenario for this team in 2024. When you're carrying that much dead cap, you and I can't take anyone seriously if they tell me that the Bills are AFC contenders. I just can't do it.
Danger. Like, go back to last year. Like, I don't know if we'll ever see a scenario like that. Week 18. Hey, you're either the 2 seed or you're out.
Yeah.
I mean, is that not the definition of farting around? This team farted. They made a stink storm last year.
Yeah.
Pull the covers up. PU. Yes.
Sean McDermott gave us a Dutch oven? Is that what you're telling me? Oh, no.
That being said, you're giving the Dolphins too much credit. I don't see tell me about this great Dolphin defense. Yes, the offense, yes, absolutely. Speed everywhere. And then it all kind of fell apart. So the Jets, because of their physicality, because they can't do worse than they did at quarterback last year, and you look at that cream puff schedule, it's almost like the NFL wants this team to get off. Yes, they get the Niners week 1, but after that, it's a bunch of inexperienced quarterbacks where Aaron Rodgers coming in, it wouldn't surprise me at all. That's a one-loss Jet team by the time they host the Bills on Monday Night Football, and it'll be the coronation of the New York Jets ready to take the division.
When are we giving our official predictions for the Buffalo Bills season?
Well, next week. I mean, certainly before opening kickoff, Tuesday or Wednesday.
When do we do our bold predictions? Is it all tied together?
It is, and I'm going to say next week should just be bold predictions week.
Ooh.
So because you and I, it's a short week next week, and we can say this: we're going to be a 3 hits for the opening night.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's going to be against the Kansas City-Baltimore game. It's a big Francesa, right? Who wins? Who cares? Football's back. Have a cold one with us.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. So we'll start laying out some bold predictions next week.
Yes,
short week.
And I say this every year. I'm actually going to write down everyone's. Whether you call in, whether you put it on X.
We're going to hold you accountable.
Yes.
We've heard some doozies in the past. We've heard some good ones.
Yeah, I think my favorite was Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to lead Washington to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, we've seen.
Yeah,
we've seen
some buttes.
Yeah. So sure, like, but that's what makes us fun.
Yeah.
Right. Like, hey, the division.
I hope I'm wrong. By the way, like, I hope that what I'm seeing isn't accurate. I hope that on paper the Jets really aren't. They're a paper tiger. That they're really not as talented as we want to say that they are.
Coaching matters.
Sure.
It does.
Sure does.
Yeah, and the quarterback certainly matters here. Can I change it up here a little bit?
Of course.
Because there's a couple amazing things going on in baseball right now. Ohtani, 40-40 with the Dodgers, and this is a guy that had major surgery on his elbow. Judge with the Yankees. Wow. Why do teams pitch to this guy? I'm bringing this up, too, because I'm listening to Maggie and Perloff to argue this morning about which guy is actually more valuable. Maggie, Perloff. That's like arguing which 5-star steakhouse is better. They're both great. Enjoy them both. Danger, I know the what-if game is the lowest common denominator in sports
it's
talk.
fun, yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't that long ago there was this plane. Like, what if Shohei was actually on that plane to Toronto?
Speaking of three heads, that was when we were at three heads. The day that we were at three heads.
Yeah, like, can you imagine what the American League MVP race, much less the American League, would be so much fun? Danger, I'm going to actually give you an argument for future use. It's the Mike Trout argument, because you say Mike Trout isn't a winner, and I say it's baseball. One guy can't make a difference. Shohei Ohtani would have made a huge difference in Toronto. Toronto would be a playoff team.
What would the Yankees be without Judge? Right?
Right on the fringe of the wild card.
Right.
Yeah.
It matters. Yeah. I mean, one team or one player can't maybe that isn't able to elevate the play of everyone else the way you see in football or in basketball, hockey. But yeah, these guys are valuable to their teams. Like I imagine if you're a Yankee fan, you shudder at the thought of Judge missing time the way he did last year.
Yeah.
This year, what would that team be?
Well, for the Yankees, who's the most important person? Oh, it's Garrett Cole. It's Carlos Rodon. The most important person is the guy protecting Judge in the order, Stanton. Stanton should be on a tear here in September. And let me tell you something about Giancarlo Stanton, because dating back to his days in Miami, he's a terror. He can go on these hot streaks. So, Yankee fan, I'm actually giving you some hope down the stretch that this actually could be for real.
At minimum, they're a fun watch. I mean, they're maddening at times. They're a roller coaster ride, and you see them lose a game to the White Sox a couple weeks ago, and you're like, what is the deal with this team? They're a roller coaster ride, and they'll lose games sometimes where they shouldn't be. The game that they lost to the Guardians last week felt like one that they shouldn't have lost because of a base-running blunder. But again, at minimum, they're fun, they're entertaining, and they're going to be a fun team to keep tabs on here when the postseason does get underway in Major League Baseball. Gino, you mentioned it in your sports update, the CeeDee Lamb extension, making him, I don't know if you're going to hear this at all, so maybe we're going to be the first to tell you, CeeDee Lamb with this deal is the second highest paid non-quarterback now in NFL history. It's great news for the Cowboys. It's great news for Lamb, obviously. What about the price that Cincinnati is going to have to pay Jamar Chase now when they finally decide to extend him? Because he's back practicing with the Bengals, and I'm sure ownership loves the idea of him being motivated to go get paid going into the season, but it's not like the price of the position is going down. I will contend that they made a mistake, and they should have signed him before CeeDee Lamb. They should sign him now. It's not like next season, barring injury, they're going to make him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history next season when the price is going to go even higher. I think it's a mistake. I think the Bengals are foolish. I think the optics of signing your kicker while you've got your star wide receiver holding out for a better deal, I think all of it is ridiculous. The Bengals have a quarterback that is one hell of a musk, a deodorant for just how dysfunctional they remain.
There's no question about it. Yeah, I would say that CeeDee Lamb, the signing there, here's the thing. It's not a new contract. It's just an extension. So what did the Cowboys really do here? What was this all about? It wasn't about, oh, my gosh, how do we fit this guy in? No, they just committed some cap space beginning next season until 2028. Whoop-de-doo. Honestly, like that's an easy decision to make, just like it should be an easy decision to make if you're Cincinnati. You need to take care of the guys who carry weight in that locker room.
I mean, when
the kicker doesn't carry any weight.
When we talk about a void in talent on the Bills roster, it's guys like this that I'm talking about. Like you're missing these kind of players that other teams that will be contending have. And that's what makes me nervous going into this season. I know that Diggs wasn't everybody's cup of tea and certainly fell off the table last year. But those are the kind of players I'm talking about. Maybe Keon Coleman is that. Maybe. We got Ryan Talbot coming up. Before that, let's sneak in Luke from Rochester back in the sports bar. Luke.
Hey, Luke.
So listen, I'm going to take issue with all summer you guys have been touting that the Jets have a better roster, maybe Miami, and the Bills roster is their best, but you're kind of neglecting the fact that the Bills have the best quarterback, and Catalana pretty much told you so. And in reality, I've been a Bills fan a long time. I don't know why you guys don't seem to appreciate Allen, but I think he's the best quarterback in their franchise, better than Jim Kelly. And
Wow. Luke, you're a longtime listener, but you are putting words in my mouth, Luke.
Same.
No offense.
I
dude.
mean, I started
What
by saying Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the division. Sean McDermott is the best head coach in the division. Like, is Josh Allen better than Aaron Rodgers into it? Yes, he is. And maybe that's all you need. Maybe. But I'm saying on paper, the roster that the Buffalo Bills have is the third best roster. At best, it's the second best roster.
And by saying that Josh Allen is the second best quarterback in the NFL today, how is that disrespecting Josh Allen?
Yeah.
Like, I would say Joe Burrow, but I've got health concerns about him, so I'm going to put Burrow behind Allen.
And I'll say this as well, and we said this at the end of the Kansas City game, and not a lot of people did it. Josh Allen needs to be better. I know you could say, well, he kept everything together. He's the team. When the moment was the biggest, he made the wrong decision. And Patrick Mahomes was simply better. He needs to be better. He's great. But if you want to get to the Super Bowl, he still needs to be better. I don't care how good you are. You need to be better than that guy.
You got to learn how to manage the game at the end of the game, because newsflash, Bass makes the kick, you still lose the game.
Probably.
Because Mahomes has enough time on the clock. Right. But Luke, thank you for listening.
Appreciate you, Luke. Should we get to game week one?
Let's get to Ryan Talbot.
All right, Ryan Talbot, covering the Buffalo Bills, NewYorkUpstate.com. And I'm sure he's got some final 53-man roster projections he's going to share with us. We're doing that next here in the Sports Bar. You can join us as well at 866-4326. 585-866 4FAN.
update.
Final cuts coming up 4 o'clock, the deadline across the NFL tomorrow. Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott says he likes the work the guys have put in.
I mean, these guys have really worked hard since the spring, several months. The effort's been outstanding. I'm extremely proud of each and every one of them, and they're going to be successful. Whether they play here, play somewhere else, do something else, I'm convinced of that.
How does the final 53 shape up? We'll talk to Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com. He joins us next year in the Sports Bar. Wide receiver CeeDee Lamb has a new deal. The Cowboys star gets a 4-year, $136 million extension. Makes him the second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Dylan Cruz makes his Major League debut tonight as Washington hosting the Yankees. Wings are off tonight. Game 1 of a doubleheader. Royals over the Guardians 4-3. Gene Battaglia, the Fan, Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Let's put a bow on the Buffalo Bills preseason with the loss on Saturday against Carolina and a look ahead to tomorrow at 4 o'clock, the deadline to trim the roster down to their final 53. We bring in Ryan Talbot covering the Bills for NewYorkUpstate.com to discuss some of those moves that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane are going to make here in the next 24 hours. Ryan, who's on the outside looking in that might be a surprise?
You know, there's not a ton of surprises, honestly, when you look at this roster. Some of the names that I have, like, right on the edge in terms of could make it, may not, are guys like KJ Hamler, Zach Davidson, who I thought had a really nice training camp, but I don't know if he did enough to push out Quentin Morris. Lyle Collins is right there on that roster bubble. So there's a few names there, but when you really look at it, most of Buffalo's roster spots, they do seem like they're almost set in stone.
Yeah, the way it used to be, Ryan, you couldn't go on injured reserve prior to cut down. If you did, you were gone for the year. They're now allowing 2 players. So if we're going through the exercise, certainly we know Matt Milano is going to be one. Who would be the other player, would you say the Bills would use that designation between now and 4 o'clock tomorrow?
Yeah, my last projection, I went with Balin Spector, who's banged up right now, listed as being week to week by Sean McDermott recently. The linebacker depth is already pretty thin in terms of who could make this final roster. So I think Spector would make sense, a guy that you could bring back after 4 weeks. I think that's a position where the Bills are going to be looking at that waiver wire, see who gets released league-wide to see if they can upgrade that position. But I'm going to go with Spector and Milano, so 2 linebackers in those IR spots.
All right, we see where this is going then. If that's the case and you're thin at that position, oh, my God, Joe Andreessen's going to make the final 53, isn't he, Ryan?
Yeah, everything's pointing in his direction in terms of, possibly making this 53-man roster. They get rid of or they release Deion Jones yesterday, a veteran. They're pretty beat up there elsewhere. So you have Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams, Nicholas Moreau, who's dealing with core and groin injury, but I think he'll be on that roster. Ulofoshio and then Andreessen. I think they make up your 5 guys on this initial roster.
We're talking to Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, as we're trying to figure out what this final 53 will look like for the Buffalo Bills. MVS then, I'm assuming then, Ryan, then if you have Spector going on the IR, the Bills will carry MVS, or could they perhaps be letting him go? And for that matter, who's wide receiver 5 and or 6 on this team?
Yeah, I have MVS making it as wide receiver 6 despite not doing much this summer. Sean McDermott gave a promising update on both MVS and Curtis Samuel, believing that they may be available come week 1. So I'm not going to put MVS on that IR spot. He has some guarantees that make him stick around. But I have Tyrell Shavers as wide receiver number 5. I feel like he did enough this summer to separate himself from MVS, kind of put himself into that spot. He can play on special teams. I thought I know he only had 2 catches in the preseason finale, but just the double move that he gave to get wide open, that's going to look good on film. You could put the blame on both Shavers and DiNucci to a certain extent on the throw itself. I thought there was plenty of room for DiNucci to kind of get that right to him. He tried to loft it. It looked like Shavers slowed down a little bit. But overall, I thought Shavers had a great summer. makes this roster, as does MVS because of the guarantees. And that leaves guys like KJ Hamler, like I said, on the outside looking in. Justin Shorter, a draft pick from 1 year ago. Andy Isabella, who was a camp darling last year too. So, it gets tough because you want to find room for these guys. A guy like Shorter that you invested in, Isabella, who has some return skills to his game. Same with Hamler.
I wish, Ryan, that we were in person like we were at St. John Fisher University, just so you could have seen Gene's reaction to you saying Tyrell Shavers not only makes the team, but is the fifth wide receiver on your depth chart.
Well, from this standpoint, Ryan, I mean, I'm just wondering, and I'm seeing names that we're familiar with, guys we've seen produce in this league. Donovan Peoples-Jones apparently getting released today by the Lions. Not that I'd say go get him, but you mean to tell me that the Bills couldn't find a better wide receiver 5 that might be on the waiver wire, better than Tyrell Shavers?
Well, this is just as of tomorrow. You're right. Once waivers hit, I mean, that's a completely different ballgame. For instance, Terrace Marshall Jr., for instance, in Carolina, he's reportedly on the trade block. And if he gets released, I know he hasn't done a ton in this league, but has the familiarity with Joe Brady from their days at LSU and his rookie season in Carolina. There's going to be some other players that are more established. It's very possible that the wide receiver room on the back end, the linebacker room on the back end, those are potential areas that get upgraded via the waiver wire, players that get cut elsewhere, veterans that are let go where the Bills don't have to try to put in a claim, for instance. So, yeah, this is just based on what I think of as of tomorrow at 4 p.m.
So walk us through that, because if you were to ask me how many players end up on the Bills' final 53 that aren't on the roster during training camp, my number would have been I don't know, maybe 2. And if you were to ask me that today, I would say, yeah, I don't think they're going to. I just don't get the sense. I think they're going to ride with the guys that they have because of their familiarity rather than being out there and finding a guy that might actually come in who has a little bit more talent than say, a Tyrell Shavers.
So I would say just 1 or 2 at most if I were, because you're right. When you look at most of these positions, they're set at cornerback. There's a lot of uncertainty with the safety position, but Bishop and Mike Edwards are trending in the right direction. Cam Lewis has the versatility to play there. DeMar Hamlin, you'd think, would be possibly ready to go week 1. The D-line looks pretty good on paper, but linebacker, Ulofoshio and Andreessen being linebackers 4 and 5, both rookies, one draft pick, one was a rookie minicamp tryout all the way to the roster. It's a great story, but I feel like maybe you could upgrade at that spot, for instance. And then wide receiver just comes down to who is potentially available, and are they willing to either eat some of the guaranteed money on MVS's contract, or are they willing to then maybe move on from Shavers after all the initial action, try to sneak him onto the practice squad? Those would be the 2 spots that come to mind. But, for the most part, this roster, like I said, I don't think there's a lot of wiggle room for outside names coming in.
Yeah, Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, our guest. I'm going to give you another position here, Ryan, because, if we take Sean McDermott at his word saying, hey, everybody's in play, there's a chance, certainly, that Mitchell Trubisky would be ready as the backup quarterback for week 1. We talked to Mike Catalana from 13 Win last hour. He said he saw Trubisky hobbling around. Those were his words. And, maybe he gets right by the time that goes around. But the question here being, Ryan, can the Bills do better at the backup quarterback position? Because, hey, if you need somebody for a game here or two, I would not feel comfortable with Ben DiNucci as the week 1 backup here.
No, and that's fair and valid. And Trubisky, Matt Perino said he was walking around with a noticeable limp. So it kind of goes right along with what Mike reported as well. So you're kind of waiting to see how well he heals up. He's wearing a brace. Whether or not he's ready for week 1 is to be determined. The Bills obviously loved Trubisky, that being Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott. They raved about him the last time he was on the roster. They were very quick to sign him to be the backup this year. I think that he's kind of locked into that job. But if he's not ready to go week 1, I would like to believe that they can find a better option than DiNucci out there. DiNucci did a fine enough job in that preseason finale when he was out there. But it's the decision making for him. It's the, obviously lack of playing time in this league. You might be able to get a guy that goes unclaimed. And I think Bailey Zappi probably gets claimed, but he's one example of a quarterback who has some starting NFL experience that you could maybe bring in here to kind of settle that position until Trubisky was healthy. But I don't know how dire the Bills view that, because I do feel like they're all in on Trubisky this year as that QB2, despite having a very underwhelming summer.
Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, stopping by the sports bar Danger and Battaglia, talking Buffalo Bills football leading up to the 53-man final roster deadline tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. Ryan, true or false, the Buffalo Bills have a Tyler Bass problem?
True, but, it's one of those things where I don't know what they can really do about it. He has so much money locked in this year where I think that they're stuck with him until he starts costing them games in the regular season. That's the only way I could see them moving on from him, because right now, even, after the cuts are done across the league, I'm not sure there's going to be a proven entity out there on the market that is an upgrade from Tyler Bass. Whoever you're going to sign is going to be probably just as inconsistent as Bass has been this summer at some point in their respective careers. You don't just usually stumble into a great kicker becoming available on the market. But what I think the Bills would be wise to do is to add one of those kickers to their practice squad to kind of push Tyler Bass a little bit, make him realize that if this is something that happens in games, we have a guy that we're going to be working with, hoping that, if he shows enough and you cost us games down the road, then we will eat that salary and have to move on. But right now it's a problem and they're kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, I mean, what happened here? Because you went from him being Mr. Automatic to, and Matt Perino mentioned this back in training camp too, and you were out there at camp, the ball just looks different coming off of his foot. It's almost like a golfer that all of a sudden lost his swing, kind of, Ryan.
We have a theory from one of our listeners who just hit us up on X at the Fan Rochester. Could this be the initial signs of Steve Blass disease? Do you know about this? That numerous players, Major League Baseball pitchers, NFL kickers,
like
Vanderjagt being the one, right? Vanderjagt going 87.5% of his field goals during his 8 seasons. But just like that missed attempt against Kansas City, he had a 46-yard field goal in the 2005 playoffs against Pittsburgh with 18 seconds left. And like Bass, he shanked it, never recovered, and missed over 50% of his kicks the following year and was cut.
Yeah, I think whoever sent that to you is a Shout Insider, because I had a discussion with this on the same exact topic earlier this morning with someone who brought up the same point, the same players, everything. And it's true. It's, kickers especially, when they lose it, it just seems like they can't get it back. And he was trying different things this summer, and Sean McDermott acknowledged that. And, the ball's coming off his foot great. He's trying different things out. I think by now, though, you need to have everything figured out for the most part. You still can't be trying things out this close to the start of the regular season. And if you can't make those kicks from 40-plus, 50-plus yards out, you're going to make things more challenging for McDermott, for Joe Brady in this offense. They're going to have to maybe go for it more on fourth and reasonable situations, which with Josh Allen, I don't know if that's the worst thing possible, but you're going to lose faith in him really quick if he comes into games and he starts missing those, kicks in that 45, 47 range that a lot of guys, most guys in this league make nowadays. And he just seems to be having that confidence issue where after that kick against KC in the playoffs, it just seems like things have gone astray for him, and he's really having trouble bouncing back from it.
Yeah, we're talking to Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, as the final 53 coming up here. Ryan, I just look at this team right now, and I'm trying to wonder, is there a position of strength that maybe, hey, you said there won't be any surprises, but somebody like a La'el Collins, do you think Brandon Beane, the possibilities that he could be trying to flip somebody right now and getting some draft capital, even if that is to move up a round or two?
Yeah, I would say when you look at this roster, guys that I could see them trading away to potentially get some late picks, La'el Collins is a great choice, first of all. 31 years old. I don't think he has the position versatility anymore. I think he's purely a guard at this point in his career, but a lot of experience. Maybe you can get someone there. Will Clapp, he's dealing with a concussion issue right now. As long as he clears that, he's another player where if you have him on the outside looking in, he has some experience in this league. He's someone that teams are always looking for offensive linemen. And then on the opposite side, on the D line, Kingsley Jonathan and Casey Toohill would be two names that I would be trying to see if there's a late round pick for out there if a team is looking to add to their defensive end ranks. And I think Jonathan has more upside, but Toohill obviously has more experience and stats that kind of back up his play in this league. But those are two guys that I don't have making the initial 53-man roster. I think have some value on the defensive side of the ball.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so what's your number there for the defensive line, Ryan, and who do you have on and who do you have off?
Yeah, I went with 9, which might be, light at that position, but I have Rousseau, Von Miller, A.J. Epinesa, Smoot, Javon Solomon as my 5 edge rushers, and then I have Ed Oliver, DeQuan Jones, Austin Johnson, and Dwayne Carter as my 4 D tackles. And, a lot of it with the D tackle position, I didn't feel like Deshaun Williams did enough this summer to put himself as a lock on this roster. Maybe the Bills, though, want to go with 5 and 5. Maybe they go with 6 and 4, but I went with a little bit light with 9 D linemen on my initial roster.
When it comes to figuring out the final 53, how much, if at all, is anything cap related here, Ryan? Because we know the Bills are very tight here.
Yeah, no, nothing was necessarily cap related except for I did look at the guarantees in the case of a guy like MVS, and it's not a monstrous guarantee. But it's enough to make me think that the Bills have already built in the excuses that he's the last receiver to kind of come along and join the team this summer. He's still learning the offense, despite all the drops at St. John Fisher University and the underwhelming summer that he had. I still think there's a path for him. And while Mitch Trubisky was pretty underwhelming too, I think the contract that they locked him in as well has him set as that QB2 as long as he's healthy.
Well, we'll always have Saturday is the Frank Gore Jr. game. We'll always remember Frank Gore Jr. going out there and competing like a warrior in a meaningless preseason game. And when you do that kind of thing in the preseason, you become immortal, right? But a lot of times it means that you never end up on the field again, and that's your high point. Do you think there's more there? Is there more meat on the bone for Frank Gore Jr. after seeing what he was able to do in the preseason this year?
No, I think there is, but I think that he is the ideal practice squad addition that you'd want. You want to see what you can develop out of him in a year. And you're right, he became a darling to the fan base on Saturday. When I shared my projection, I had one fan laughing at the fact that I didn't have Gore Jr. on the roster, and the Bills should cut Ty Johnson or Reggie Gilliam to make sure Gore has that spot. And
wow.
It's every summer you get those guys that have those performances, and they must be on the roster.
Is Christian Wade still available? Can you get him? He's still out there, right?
I think he's back playing rugby at this point. But I like Frank Gore Jr. He's a little undersized, though. He showed well in the preseason finale, but you want to try to bulk him up a little bit, get him more of an NFL body, and you can't do anything about the height, but you can add a little bit of bulk and muscle to the frame, and And unfortunately, Darrington Evans, too, is another guy that I don't have them making this roster, where I think Evans, somewhere in this league, should be able to stick around because of his return ability, because of his speed. He has some of the intangibles that you look for in a number 3 running back, but the Bills just kind of have that room already figured out.
Yeah, we're talking to Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, as taking a look at that final 53. And as we mentioned, Ryan, whatever the Tuesday 53 at 4 o'clock is, highly unlikely it's going to be the same 53 that they're going to open up with against Arizona. Let me throw a name past you. Did he do enough last year? Because I'm reading out of Viking camp that Trent Sherfield is squarely on the bubble. We know the Bills like guys that have familiarity with the offense. Is that somebody, do you think, that they would consider?
I wouldn't necessarily consider him for the 53 if he goes unclaimed and doesn't land on a roster. Practice squad, absolutely. But Sherfield, didn't really do much in this offense last year when it mattered. He had some big drops in the postseason on balls that he could have and probably should have caught. I don't think that he made enough of an impression there to stick around. I think that the Bills were ready to move on from him, and he was ready for a fresh start. So, no, not someone that I would eye for the 53, but again, you're right. The familiarity, if he does get cut by the Vikings and he doesn't sign anywhere, he would be an ideal practice squad candidate because of his knowledge of the system.
Ryan, you tipped us off to something earlier when we were talking about Tyler Bass having the yips, the Shout Insider Club that you believe one of our regulars might be a part of just by having that conversation. Tell us a little bit more about what you and Matt are working on here as we get ready for week one and we get ready for that announcement of the final 53 tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, so with the Shout Insider, we have a dedicated number of Bills fans that we communicate with. We send out messages to them. We can communicate one-on-one with them. We give them news and observations before anything else, so it's a really cool platform. And then in addition to that, though, Matt and I will, as soon as that roster is set tomorrow, we'll have articles up on that. I'll have a tracker that goes live tomorrow. Matt will be giving his initial thoughts on the 53-man roster, probably talking about some potential upgrades that are out there as well. I'll have a practice squad tracker. So it's going to be a pretty busy time, both with the Shout Insider text line and just in general on social media and on Syracuse.com and NYF.com.
You keep up the great work, the work you and Matt are doing here, and I'm sure we'll run into each other week one there. Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com. Always a pleasure to have you on, bud.
Hey, thanks, guys.
You got it. Ryan Talbot covering the team, doing a hell of a job. We'll have Perino on tomorrow, right? Tomorrow is Perino Tuesday.
Yeah, Perino Tuesday. We gotta come up with some catchy nickname for Perino Tuesday.
We just need. Well, do we really need a nickname for Matt Perino? I don't think we do. You want to know why? 'Cause he's Italian.
He's got Rochester roots too. He's of the Perino family from Brockport. He's one of the west side.
Right.
Brockport, that's on the outer skirts of the west side.
That's right.
Me.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah,
Hey. Who you talking to tomorrow? 325? Matt Perino? Hey.
Although Matt Perino, I'm not sure if he's eating the white bread and pasta on Sunday, the way he treats his body.
No,
he's not doing that.
No sauce on Sunday for that one. No, probably not. Really appreciate the insight there from Ryan Talbot. We look forward to our conversation with Matt Perino, his co-host on the Shout podcast. That's tomorrow, 325. We're going to take a break and come back with Happy Hour next in the sports bar. CeeDee Lamb gets paid. We've got a preseason finale to recap, and the Bills already making some roster moves here. And we continue to project what this final 53-man roster could look like by tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. You're welcome to pull up a stool and join us as well at 585-866-4FAN. We're also on Elon's Twitter. That's X, at The Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester, sports update.
It's that time of year again. Final cuts coming up, 4 o'clock, the deadline across the NFL tomorrow. Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott says tough decisions await.
At the end of the day, what's best for the team, I know Brandon and I believe this, is fitting it together, right? And, making decisions that are best, both short-term and long-term, for the good of the club overall.
CeeDee Lamb has a new deal. The Cowboys wide receiver gets a 4-year, $136 million extension. It makes him the second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Major League Baseball tonight, the Yankees are in Washington for the Nationals, just up from Rochester. Dylan Cruz makes his Major League debut. Game 1 of a doubleheader today, the Royals over the Guardians 4-3. Rochester Red Wings off tonight. They're in Scranton tomorrow. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
And the preseason is officially in the books.
It's a transitionary week, at least at the start of it, with the roster decisions that need to be made, and then you have practice squad players that we'll be targeting. But big picture-wise, it'll be us continuing to move forward and getting ourselves ready, making sure we're ready to go for game 1.
I can't sit here and say I know what the 53 is. That's not accurate. There's still some things to be settled. We'll run through where everyone's at and make sure that we have the right team ready for Arizona week 1.
Mike Danger.
I like to live dangerously, live on the edge, maybe go behind my wife's back from time to time and squander a nickel when I crush an empty water bottle. I like to live on the edge. How are you, buddy?
We're living on the edge. Gene Battaglia.
There's something called Danger Tape. I had no idea.
Tape. Oh.
Yeah, I'm Mike Danger for Danger Tape.
Mike Danger was a comic book.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's like
Mickey Spillane's Mike Danger.
Yeah.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Funny, I feel like every year at the conclusion of training camp, and I'm sure we're not alone in this, we're having the conversation about the worst case scenario. Oh my God. Can we really trust Mitchell Trubisky to guide this team if something were to happen to Josh Allen? Because we haven't seen any sort of inspiring play from any of the backup quarterbacks. I mean, Ben DiNucci looked okay on Saturday, but of course he looked okay. He's Italian. But you're not feeling confident about his ability to get you a win or two if there was an absence to your franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's not make a mistake. Like, every team is having this conversation.
That's right.
Like, what if? But I think Catalana brought up a good point. I mean, the Bills are past due on developing a quarterback. What do you mean? You have Josh Allen. No, like getting somebody young. You don't have to go spend a second-round pick, but just can you draft somebody mid-round and bring them along, and then when the time comes, they're going to show a little bit more athletic ability. I don't know what happened to Mitch Trubisky. Like, when he was with the Bears.
Oh, no, Chicago broke him. Yeah, Chicago broke him. That's what happened to Mitch Trubisky. He was Matt Nagy broke Mitch Trubisky. That's what happened. I can tell you the exact game where it happened, where he benched him for Chase Daniel and whispered sweet nothings into his ear, and he was never the same after that point. He's broken.
Okay, so he's broken, but yet, he's on his second tour of duty here in Buffalo.
Yep.
No, it's the possibility the Bills are going to have to go get some quarterback that's not on the roster right now. Hearing the report from Matt Perino, and we talked to Catalana, that Mitch Trubisky's still hobbling around, limping. Okay, that doesn't sound good for week 1. Certainly there's some time here, I understand.
So is that the move that gets made when we talk about players who aren't on this roster right now that will be on this roster post-deadline from another team? Is it a backup quarterback? Is that the move?
It's Kyle Allen. Like, they're not going to keep 3 quarterbacks in Pittsburgh. Yeah. So come on down, Kyle Allen, back to Buffalo.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You can reach out to us on Elon's Twitter. That's X at the Fan Rochester. A username Suburban Gorilla. I will bet you a nice box of wine that Aaron Rodgers doesn't make it past week 10 behind that terrible Jets offensive line. Calling it now. By week 6, Rodgers will be out for the season again. I'm not going to bet on a player getting injured because that feels like really, really bad karma.
And I don't know that the offensive line, at least this year, is as bad as it was last year.
No, Becton is gone. So, we can kind of put that. By all accounts, it's a better offensive line that they have with the Jets. But you can see the arc of the Jets season, right? When we go over the actual schedule here for the Jets, I mean, there are W's to be had. If the Jets don't get off to a good start, should I do this by the opponent or by the quarterback?
Even if they lose week 1 in prime time, Monday Night Football, in the Bay, big Robert Saleh revenge game. Okay. Even if they lose, they should still get off to a hot start.
They should still be 4-1 heading into Buffalo. Okay, so you get at Tennessee, Will Levis. I'm sorry, that should be a W. New England, Drake May, W. Home against Bo Nix in Denver, danger. Oh, and then the Sam Darnold revenge game against Minnesota.
Yeah, but you know what? They are the Jets, so they could drop 2 of those pretty easily.
Yeah.
2 of the games that you wouldn't expect them to lose, they could certainly lose. Yeah, I just think if you're talking about talent on these rosters in the division, I don't know how you can sell me on the Bills having a more talented roster on paper than the Jets or the Dolphins. Maybe I'll listen to you on the Dolphins, but certainly not on the Jets. And that doesn't mean that the Jets are winning the division. It doesn't mean that the Bills are going to finish 3rd in the division. It just means that right now, when you look at these rosters on paper, the Bills don't have that kind of talent.
Well, it's all based on hope. They have a plan. We just can't definitively tell you, the best case scenario is Shakir's going to take that next step.
We want
as
you
is
to,
Greg Rousseau.
We want you to rub a couple of quarters together and make a wish that this season is going to be a success. And by the way, when you're done with those 2 quarters, would you consider investing them into a bond to help pay for our stadium? What are we doing, Gino?
Well, that's not
the Bills.
That's
I get
Erie
it.
County.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? I don't fault them for asking people. Used to be, hey, buy a brick, commemorate your family. And when was the last time everybody looked at your family brick out at innovative, what was called Frontier?
It would have to be a special occasion. It would have to be to commemorate a fallen loved one, something like that. Then I would say that would make sense.
I mean, I thought we would have gotten to that point. Hey, own a piece of the new Bills Stadium. Maybe they're doing that. Somebody tell me.
I just wish in my lifetime that somebody would name a star after me, because that's been around for a long, long time, and I know that there's billions of them out there. Somebody just name a star after the person you love.
Isn't that guy the biggest crook ever? We're going to name that star after you. Write it down on a piece of paper in there.
Here you go. That star is all yours. When you look up in the sky and you see all the billions of stars, that one right there.
Hi, I'm Rocky Moselle. He was.
You would even remember the guy's name.
Yeah, how could you not remember?
I forgot about it.
Listened to enough talk radio over the years. I don't even know if Rocky Moselle is still with us.
Name a star after them. So, okay, is that what we're doing here? We're getting bonds for the Bills?
Bonds for the Bills, but then the piece for the Buffalo Bills, and this is reported, various reports that when the NFL owners are meeting, that chunk that Terry Pegula of the Buffalo Bills that is looking to be sold, it sounds like the Bills are going to be the first team that's going to take in a private equity firm and basically sell a piece of the team. And I have questions here, namely, you know what private equity firms want, Danger? They want a return on investment. That is what everyone wants, right? They're not doing this to prop up Buffalo Bills football. So where the cash kind of goes in right now, will that, whoever it is, corporation come in and say, I'm not really happy with the dead cap, or we need to eliminate expenses, or why are we paying so much money to move the team to Rochester every summer? Will that power be there?
Dude, I struggle to think of an investment better than an NFL team. Name something that has given the return to these billionaires that their NFL investment has given to you or I. It doesn't exist, I don't think.
Why isn't every team selling just a little bit of a chunk just to enjoy the cash? just a big explosion of cash that Terry Pegula is about ready to enjoy here.
Right. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that other than we're an exclusive club and we've got 32 members and we vet everybody and there's a vote and there's a process and they get together in meetings and they come up with, rules and then they change the rules. That was another thing that happened today. Like all of these things happening before the season is like the little last minute details that they got to get worked up for the season. They sent out a memo. Here's a memo to teams letting them know that the NFLPA vetoed a rule change from earlier this year. And I might be wrong, but I think this was a rule change that Sean McDermott actually brought up as part of the competition committee now, that would allow teams to call up a player from the practice squad an unlimited number of times to be on the inactive list as the third quarterback, the emergency quarterback on game days. So what this means now is that any quarterback that's designated for the emergency role has to already be on the 53-man roster.
Well, I get this, okay, because follow me on this. You're the NFLPA. That would dramatically reduce the expense of carrying the third quarterback if you can kind of do that. Just keep him on the practice squad, and if you call him up once or twice, so be it. That will lower the salary, and I would have to think even at backup quarterback, that's got to be kind of pricey there. So that was a way for the NFLPA to say, no. You want your third quarterback, none of this emergency stuff. You pay a third quarterback.
Right, that's right. You don't get a 54th member of your active roster who gets to live on the practice squad. Basically is what it comes down to.
The 53 has to be paid like the 53.
Correct.
Essentially. Yeah.
So now, if you're the Bills or any team, you have decisions on what to do there with a third quarterback. Hell, with the Bills, we can't even figure out the second. So we got a little ways to go.
Yeah, I think DiNucci is your practice squad quarterback, but do the Bills look, it sounds strange. Like Trubisky could be on the street here, danger, just because if he's not going to be healthy week one. But I would caution everybody, or Ryan Tannehill, or look, you're going to be getting somebody like Kyle Allen.
Oh yeah,
it's like this is not.
Yeah, you could telegraph that pass. You could see that one coming from a mile away, right? They're not keeping 3 in Pittsburgh. You've got Russ, you've got Justin Fields, Kyle Allen becomes expendable, and he's back in Buffalo because that's what makes Josh Allen comfortable. Great. And you know what? Ben DiNucci was serviceable in his 2 outings for the Buffalo Bills. You got to give him a lot of credit for showing up and having a limited knowledge of the team and somewhat knowledge of the offense that he was calling. But he played all right. The touchdown to Shavers would have been a nice one. That would have been nice.
Yeah, that's one of those, okay, I blame Shavers. You could blame DiNucci. To me, that encapsulates everything that Shavers. Look, I'm going to agree with you. I don't have to agree with this, though. Can I make that distinction? You are saying Ryan Talbot said it. Carolina said it.
He's making the team.
Yeah. That's it? You're kidding me. You can't.
So understand what I'm saying when I say that I feel like the Bills have the third best roster in the division on paper. It's when you look at Garrett Wilson and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and we trot out barefoot Mac Hollins. Guys, it's not the same thing. It's just not. I mean, he's a nice guy. He's a good story. He'll be a fun player to watch, and I'm sure he'll have some production. He needs to have production. He hasn't had it, say, for one season in his NFL career. Would you rather have Garrett Wilson or Marquez Valdez-Scantling? Would you rather have Mike Williams or Tyrell Shavers?
I am not going to put the Bills behind the Dolphins because I think the Dolphins' defense is really paper thin. And you're changing a coordinator. Some of these starters, who are these guys?
You're doing the same thing in Buffalo.
Benito, right?
It's still his defense, but you've got a new guy calling the plays. You don't have Poyer and Hyde. Milano's already gone. I worry, man. I worry about the lack of talent, and I know it's a pain in the ass. I know that there's baggage that comes with it. Anybody that's anti-Steph Diggs says, good, get the drama queen out of here. Well, that drama queen was talent. Brendan Bean recognized it. Sean McDermott recognized it. Josh Allen recognized it. The league recognizes it. You go out and you have to pay for talent. You can't do it this year. You don't have the cap space. You got all this dead cap money because of the Stephon Diggs the contract that you gave him, because of everything else.
That was it wasn't a football move. It was a divorce.
Yeah.
You know, you could have been married. Your spouse could have been great, but sometimes it just gets to, all right, do we want it?
It's why you pay Von Miller when you bring him over here. It's why you trade for Stephon Diggs. And they don't have that. They don't have that this year. They're not going to have that this year. They can't afford it this year. So I'm nervous. I'm nervous about that part. I'm nervous about the roster. We'll love it when it's done. The 53-man roster, we'll celebrate it. We'll look at it and we'll be like, oh, yeah, we really hope that Khalil Shakir continues to do what he did at the end of last season, and Keon Coleman is fun and exciting, and maybe he's the guy, and it's a lot of hope. And that's what this season is all about. It's a season of optimism.
Yeah, I know. Listen, it's the final week of summer. That's how I kind of view this, heading into Labor Day. So I'm not here to rain on a Bills fan parade. This should be an exciting time of year.
It is.
But I will frame it this way, is that if the Bills are going to be a contender, and you want to talk about the worst-case scenario, you haven't brought up the worst-case scenario. Oh, my gosh, Josh Allen out. And I'm not talking a game or two, extended period. And teams that have deep rosters figure out a way. Freaking Cincinnati had a winning record last year without Joe Burrow. Now, Joe Burrow didn't miss the whole year, but he wasn't there at the end. What about Baltimore the year before that? Tyler Huntley was the quarterback, and they get to the postseason. Now, they didn't go far, but I'm just pointing out, winning record, making postseason, what happens in Buffalo? It's not a playoff team. It's not a winning record. Picking top 10, dare I say top 5? Like, that's the definition of MVP right there. Like, you take away Josh Allen from this roster. Whoa.
Yeah. Well, I'm not, obviously not, I don't want to project that on anybody. But, yeah, when we have the conversation about backup quarterbacks, you're having that conversation because you're trying to think, okay, what if the worst-case scenario happens? And you would hope that you would have something better on the shelf than Mitch Trubisky or Kyle Allen. But that might just – and I think that's also a function of the league. Like, there's a scarcity at that position where there are teams right now that believe they have their guy. And I'm telling you, they don't have their guy. Gardner Minshew is not going to be the guy for the Raiders.
I don't know. I don't know if any Raider fan is saying that. That feels like a watered-down version of Fitz. I'm looking at the rookie quarterbacks. Wow, everybody optimistic. New England, hey, Drake May, all of a sudden, he's the real deal. But Bo Nix, really, you mean to tell me all 4 of these rookie quarterbacks that are going to start week 1 are going to be the guy?
No, it's impossible to predict, but this is why you won't see the NFL expand anytime soon, because you just won't get quality of play. You had Tom Brady talking about how we're thrusting these guys into these roles before they're ready, and you have to dumb things down for them, and it really kind of does a disservice to the game that we love to watch, right? Like, watching Drake May not be able to completely execute on offense because he's limited isn't going to be entertaining. None of us should be excited about that. Not that watching Jacoby Brissett is any better. Neither of them are the answer, and I guess that's my point, is that there isn't really anybody out there. I don't know who is out there as a backup that you could get for Josh Allen that would be like, well, at least we'll have X, because that guy is already claimed.
You've got to go pay for him. Like Cleveland paid for Jameis Winston, which, that's right, he's there. Anybody that brings up the Ryan Tannehill name, sure. If you can call Ryan Tannehill's agent and say, come to Buffalo for the league minimum, you won't get that response of yes, all right? So Ryan Tannehill's going to want to go somewhere where either A, he gets paid, or B, it's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we'll wait. Tomorrow, 4 o'clock, all teams have to submit their final 53-man roster. We mentioned Tyrell Shavers. I believe he makes this team. Seeing KJ Hamler out there late in the fourth quarter, not a great sign in the final preseason game. I know he was in there for mop-up after Frank Gore kind of left with that injury. But still, and we love KJ Hamler, man. He was our first guest this year at camp?
Yeah.
He was fantastic, man, and he's been through a lot, and he's been through his ups and his downs as a professional. You hope that guy latches on and is able to continue his career, because I think he's a fun player. He's an electric player. But Shavers is somebody that I have making this team. I also believe that Joe Andreessen is on this final 53-man roster.
Well, I wouldn't have said that, but then you look at Spector not being ready. So they can do the roster gymnastics here, meaning Danger. The new rule was if you went on IR before the season began, you were gone for the season. So the old rule would have been, oh, my gosh, we really want Matt Milano on the team. We've got to carry Matt Milano even though we know he's not back until December. Well, now the Bills can put 2 players on injured reserve and then not have to worry about that counting to the 53. You can call back 2 players, again, before making the 53. If you want to keep 3, well, let me give you the example here. We think it's going to be Milano and probably Balin Spector.
Mm-hmm.
So with MVS, you're giving him a 53-man spot, even though you know he's not going to be ready likely week 1 or 2.
Well, he might be, and if you listen to Sean McDermott, I mean, he said everybody except for Milano last week, right? I mean, like, everybody's moving in the right direction.
McDermott injury fog.
Yeah, and I wouldn't, even if MVS is out there, I wouldn't expect anything out of him until late in the season anyways. That's been his MO as a player in the NFL all along. It takes him a while to ramp up. Players you won't be seeing, season's over for Terrell Burgess, D. Delaney, injured reserve. They were both placed on injured reserve yesterday, so that'll be that for them. Man, I was hoping for more out of Deion Jones. He just wasn't very good.
No, there was one play from the Bears. Now, one play where he made the tackle. Oh, okay. And then I forgive me because I don't know who the Bears player that scored on the play, but Jones just goes over. And rather than sticking his nose in, just kind of almost does like a 2-hand touch thing, allows the guy to score. I'm like, that ain't it. So, yeah. I mean, to me, this was wasted time the last 2 weeks.
Anthony Brown, after playing a half of football on Saturday, was released as well. Demir Bird let go. Offensive lineman Kevin Jarvis, defensive end Rondell Bothroyd, Shane Simon, linebacker, and corner Kyron Brown, safety. Kyron Brown also released. So the Bills beginning their trimming yesterday, and we'll have more news as the final 53 starts to shape up here leading up to 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. CeeDee Lamb got paid today. Great news for Cowboy fan.
Why did this take so long? Because you could say, well, it's the cap, Gene. Is it? This has nothing to do with this year's cap. Like, legitimately.
It's an extension.
It's an extension. Just what you do with somebody in the 5th year, just how they did with Josh Allen. So Lamb plays out his contract, and then next year becomes the second highest non-quarterback ever to get paid in the NFL.
You might hear that just a little bit over the course of the next 24 hours.
So congratulations to Jamar Chase, because now the market has been set. And to Mike Brown and his fine management with the Cincinnati Bengals, what are you waiting for?
It's just dumb. Well, they paid their kicker, so they took care of what was important. And then there's this. I guess this move is more of an indictment of the health of Hollywood Brown than anything, but Juju Smith-Schuster is signing with the Chiefs once again. The Chiefs truly are like what the Patriots were. Like, this happened all the time with New England, right? Player leaves, goes away for a year.
Oh, wait, McMeekel's back on the
Comes
team.
back,
Yeah, like if the Bills, when the Bills move on from MVS, in Kansas City, should we bring him back?
Yeah, he'll be back there. He'll be back there. So after winning a Super Bowl and beating the Eagles in 2022, Smith-Schuster back with Kansas City, was let go by the Patriots earlier this month after a disappointing 29 for 260 yards and 1 touchdown in 11 games.
Why is this with this league, though? When it comes to players and coaches, there's a certain degree like this, I suppose, in any business, but I think it's the disease in the NFL that we know this guy. We know what type of person he is. Really? Why not go get the most talented guy? Keep this in mind when the Bills bring back Kyle Allen or Trent Sherfield. Those will be the type of moves that will be less than inspiring.
Allen is one that I could see happening. I don't think Sherfield's coming back. I don't think Sherfield wants to come back. I don't think he would want to come back. I think
if he's out there, he might be looking for work.
Yeah, but he probably didn't like how last year went because, let's face it, he was really a non-factor offensively for this team.
It was the 5th wide receiver.
Yeah.
So maybe we should keep that in mind. Like, for all this talk about the 5th wide receiver, this is going to be a team that's running 2 tight ends, and your 3rd wide receiver will be a rookie. The 4th will be Mac Hollins. Well, I don't know if you know this or not, Danger. He doesn't wear shoes.
That's why on a day like today, Like, if you would have asked me at the end of training camp, hey, how many players are the Bills going to bring in off of a roster that is not the Buffalo Bills after cutdown day? And I would say, I don't know, maybe like 2. And now I'm struggling. I really don't know that they do it with anybody because I feel like what we've been fed is a steady diet of Joe Andreessen and Tyrell Shavers. And these guys are, like, we get caught up in the hype just like fans get caught up in the hype. And the next thing you know, like, these are our guys. We want Shavers out there, even though there probably are more talented players available come tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Let's call it right now. Next Tuesday, bold prediction day.
Okay.
Bold prediction day. Pete's the first one in.
Okay.
Okay, you can write to us on X.
One of our regulars.
Yeah. Jets win the Super Bowl. Dolphins miss the playoffs. Giants win the NFC East.
No, this is from last year. These are last year's predictions.
Oh, my gosh. I'm sorry.
Yeah, these are last year's
sorry.
predictions. Because as soon as you said Jets win this, or Giants win the NFC East, that was like, oh, no, that was from last year.
Okay, my fault, Peter. I should have looked at that a little more carefully or just go up to a 2.0 for my 1.5 on the readers.
He was wrong on all of them. All of his bold predictions, none of them came true.
But then Maggie Gray picking the Jets to win the Super Bowl, or win the division, win the Super Bowl, I believe. She has them over Buffalo.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Again, I think you have to be objective. Like, I know how close we are to it, and we try to share our insight and our what we see and what we hear, and when I get around regular fans, some even casual fans, they even have the kind of baseline mentality of, we're wasting Josh Allen. It's just going to be another wasted season with Josh Allen. We're wasting his best years. And it goes back to, speaking of Maggie, what Maggie said, like, you have to really kind of think and wonder, was 13 seconds the best that it could get for this era of Bills football? Man, I hope not. But it sure feels like that was the ceiling for this team.
Listen, tomorrow on the Sports Bar, we're not going to be all doomy gloomy.
By the way, I don't know that. I'm not trying to pee in your Cheerios on a Monday afternoon. But after watching that game and after kind of like looking,
you can't put any stock into
but looking at all of the projections, all the people that are posting their projections and putting out there, here's what the 53 will look like, and absorbing that, I'm like, yeah, I don't love it. I don't love the final 53. I love elements of it. I mean, how do you not love your starting quarterback? He's one of the best in the league. I think you've got great tight ends. I think Deion Dawkins is fantastic at left tackle. I think there's some concerns on what the rest of the offensive line might look like, but let's just say that that's going to be okay. Defense scares me. Defense scares me, man. I'm nervous about safety. I'm nervous about linebacker. I'm nervous about the pass rush. I'm nervous about all 3 levels of the defense for the Buffalo Bills.
Well, I would say this. All right. As far as like the front seven, what's different from last year? No Leonard Floyd. That's about it. You're getting Daquan Jones back for much of the season. Like, you didn't have Milano at all after week 5 last year. The safeties are a concern. The idea that Mike Edwards is going to be one of your starting safeties, or it's DeMar Hamlin, either way, you're not. And we're propping up Taylor Rapp. Yeah, he came around at the end of last year. There's also times where, the late hits and out of position. So there are opportunities to be had for the safety position in Buffalo, and the depth there, it's non-existent.
Here's something that's interesting that Schefter reported about 10 minutes ago now. The Titans are sending Malik Willis to the Packers for a 7th-round pick. He will be the backup likely to Jordan Love.
Malik Willis, remember the story, out of Liberty.
Yeah.
Liberty, 2020, they beat Syracuse. Like, wait, what is going on here? Liberty. And then you realize, like, I'm not trying to be mean. It was a high school offense that they were running, so that was kind of the balance. And a lot of people had Malik Willis going in the 1st round. Where did he end up going? 3rd round? I think it was one of those, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, they kind
He's
of
a pretty good athlete.
Yeah, so at some point you would have figured you would. I'm just wondering. You talk about guys that were rushed in. Seems like that guy might have been rushed in.
I feel like that was a guy that Mike Vrabel did not want any part in drafting and was forced on him, and so therefore he never got a fair shake in Tennessee. And maybe this is what's best for both parties. I want to say Sean Clifford was set to back up Jordan Love, and at least with this guy, you've got somebody who can move, so who's a little bit of an athlete in the pocket.
It's interesting. I wonder if like ownership had anything to do with that, because I did on my weekend viewing watch that Netflix Eric McNair, the murder of Eric McNair. Here's my review, okay? And if you don't want to listen, just be advised. I'm going to give you my review.
Well, I think we have. I mean, there aren't really any spoilers to this. We kind of know how the story goes.
I would just say lower your expectations.
Yeah.
Like,
wait, hold on a second. You mean something that's being propped up that everybody talks about on Netflix doesn't live up to the hype? Because that never happens.
No, what's good about it is it brings you back to a team that was actually kind of fun. We don't like to admit that from Buffalo because that's one of the worst losses in Bills history, certainly. But you forget how great Steve McNair was.
The
and
warrior.
Steve McNair coming out of Alcorn State, and Steve McNair, who sat for a while, and then finally, okay, here, kid. And then when he was on, he was on. And that's the fun part of the documentary. It's this kind of this forgotten 99-2000 team, and it burned brightly, and then it was gone. But as far as the alternate suspects and everything, they don't really give you much in terms of evidence other than raising questions. But, and the whole time, Jeff Fisher's just kind of, sitting there in his leather chair, losing his train of thought. And
we're on a record-setting pace with our punt team.
I really like what Danny's doing.
I've been impressed with Brandon, and what he's done out of the backfield. And it's you got to deal with him in addition to Danny, and you got playmakers all around. So we have to play sound defense.
I'm convinced he was trying to get fired at that point. That was the point where I'm like, he's trying to lose his job.
We're on a record-setting pace with our punt team.
You ever hear a coach mention the record-setting pace that they're on with their punt team? That's a coach that's trying to get fired.
What does that even mean? Like, you're proud you're punting the ball.
We're on a record-setting pace with our punt team.
I'm trying to get fired.
Sad part is you watch the old footage of Jeff Fisher. I'm like, what happened? Because he was this energetic, tough guy. The team took on the persona of the coach, and then
good coach.
Yeah,
good coach that just kind of became
got old,
middling.
Yeah.
We've got to take a break and come back with a round of shots next in the sports bar.
Yeah, as we do have news here for the Yankees. Did you watch the Yankee game, Danger? Got an update on that hump yesterday. That was actually kind of a scary scene there that got carted off basically yesterday. The Washington Commanders trying to write something that was very dumb that Daniel Snyder did, and also because we love this time of year for fantasy baseball and fantasy football, I should say, but another baseball team, a way they picked their draft order, we'll share.
Okay, we'll get to that and more next. A round of shots, and don't forget about last call before 6 o'clock. If you want to have the final say in the sports bar, you can. Just join us at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
Sports Update.
Final cuts for the Bills and for the rest of the NFL. 4 o'clock tomorrow, the deadline. Bills head coach Sean McDermott says he likes the work the guys are putting.
I mean, these guys have really worked hard since the spring, several months. The effort's been outstanding. I'm extremely proud of each and every one of them, and they're going to be successful. Whether they play here, play somewhere else, do something else, I'm convinced of that.
CeeDee Lamb has a new deal. The Cowboy wide receiver gets a 4-year, $136 million extension and makes him the second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Dylan Cruz, he's up from Rochester. He makes his major league debut tonight for Washington. The Nationals hosting the Yankees. As for the Red Wings, they're off tonight. They're in Scranton tomorrow. One final from the majors today. Game 1 of a doubleheader. The Royals over the Guardians 4-3. Gene Battaglia in the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Epic victories, heartbreaking defeats. No matter your team, no matter your game, we talk sports. The Fan, Rochester.
Happy hour continues on The Fan. Time for a round of shots in the sports bar, Gino.
Again, why would anyone pitch to Aaron Judge right now? Just put him on first base. Yankees star now up to 51 on the season. We're not even at Labor Day danger. Back-to-back 2-run homer games against the Rockies. It's the third time in his career that Judge has reached 50 home runs, and the only one in Major League Baseball history to do it 3 times in his first 9 years.
9 times.
The pace right now is for 63, which would be one ahead of his own American League record of 62, which, I don't know, is that John Sterling's vocal cords that are warming up here?
He wants to be a part of that action.
The Yankees tonight, as we mentioned in D.C., Nestor Cortes taking the mound for New York, 6:45, the first pitch.
Very good. And you're right. Nobody should pitch to him.
Now, a freak injury in the home plate, through the home plate umpire in yesterday's Yankee game. Nick Marley suffering a concussion. This after getting struck by the broken bat of Giancarlo Stanton. Stanton swung at an inside pitch, which broke at the barrel part. The barrel part of the bat sawed off, swings around, hit Marley on the side of the head where there's no protection. Remember, it's not like a goalie mask. It's just kind of something they put over their face. So the cart came off, and hopefully he'll be fine.
Scary scene. One of the most traumatic things I remember seeing as a kid was a friend of mine, as we were playing, Little League or T-ball or whatever it was, get hit with the bat on the side of the head. And just like the instant, gush of blood, and just complete accident. But when those accidents happen and when you're messing around with the head and a baseball bat, it's never a good thing.
No, but the scary thing about this, it's bad where, it's a bloop, it ends up being a bloop single to left, and the catcher, because whatever the sound that was, not even concerned about what's going on in the play out in the field, turns around to look at the umpire down on the ground. It was just a very strange play, but luckily I think everything's going to be okay.
Well, it will be a goalie mask moving forward, I have a feeling.
Probably. That would be a good thing. Want another domino to fall in the conference alignment in college sports? Well, we got this perhaps coming. Big East basketball fans are not going to like this, but UConn has entered a discussion to join the Big 12. This wouldn't start until the year 2031. Why so long? Well, they got to let UConn actually catch up in terms of building up its football program so they can meet the minimum standards.
Oh, okay. So, 2031. I mean, we're really what does the world look like in 2031? We're talking about.
Well, I would just say, how bad is the ACC if you can't pick up the phone and say, hey, UConn, we're actually a better fit for you basketball-wise.
We're better fit for you basketball-wise, and you might be a little bit more competitive from a football standpoint as well.
Right.
You're going to get waxed in the Big 12.
The Washington Commanders are fixing something. They're going to build a statue in the honor of former safety Sean Taylor. You may remember the story. He was murdered. You might recall this. In 2022, the memorial from owner Dan Snyder, and Danger remembers this.
Oh, God.
The previous management provided, it was nothing more than a mannequin in soccer cleats.
You remember? And, it was freaking embarrassing. It was really
cheap.
It was really bad. Really, really bad. I don't want to throw stones. I mean, we should throw stones. It's Daniel Snyder. But, it feels like the kind of thing that Sabres have the business the Sabres have got into when they do their tributes. And, we've heard enough stories. It's okay, guys, if you're going to do a tribute, can we put some meaning behind it and really make it something? Or are we just going to half-ass everything we do?
The Sabres, to your point, Danger, they stop doing the Hall of Fame. Like, there's a team Hall of Fame, and they just kind of stop doing it.
We're done.
Like, we're done. Nobody's worthy anymore. The U.S. Open is underway. Coco Gauff, she advanced today. She is the defending women's champ. She looks to become the first woman to repeat since Serena Williams did it 3 straight years from 2012 to 2014. 30-year-old Jessica Pegula, she's the 6th seed, and she'll be taking on an unseeded American named Shelby Rogers. That's 9 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night.
Okay.
Finally, we have another Major League Baseball team that has found a unique way to determine their fantasy football draft order. Arizona Diamondback manager Torey Lovullo took batting practice himself at Fenway Park this past weekend. Written on each baseball was the name of one of the fantasy managers. The furthest ball hit would be the top pick. Closest one at the bottom. Lovullo hitting the green monster with the ball that had Merrill Kelly as a pitcher on the team. So Kelly will get the first overall pick. Popping up was Jock Peterson's ball. He's last. We already know from previous years that Peterson plays himself some fantasy football. If you're wondering, Tommy Pham no longer in Arizona. He plays in St. Louis.
Yeah, they got in a big fight over league dues or payment.
Yeah.
Something. I don't like this as a method to determine draft order. I think this is very easily manipulated. I don't like this at all. What was the one that the A's told us about?
So the A's went up to Mount Al, which is what the locals there call center field because Al Davis bought it, built it, and nobody used it, so they jokingly call it Mount Al.
Yeah.
And they put like a hula hoop at the field.
And then you throw it in the closest to the
Yeah,
hula hoop.
so like, you know.
But
like,
every player did it themselves. It wasn't
right.
determined by somebody else.
Correct. So like you see this like a chuck-a-puck thing at hockey or
Yeah.
whatever. Closest to the pin, that would determine it. So I mean, it could be totally blind, though. How could you not know? You can't read Merrill Kelly's name on the pitch coming in.
Yeah, I suppose you probably wouldn't know whose ball you're hitting out there, but you know, it's baseball after all. It's so everything is kind of like there's so much. What's the word I'm struggling with here? Sorry, Gino. It's the end of the show, and I've run out of batteries.
Well, you enjoyed the wine this weekend.
All the
wines.
wines.
Might be a little dehydrated.
I've done my last
Tradition?
brain cell. No, there's not adversity. It's another. Never mind. I'm saying it doesn't.
Words, yeah.
Yeah, words are a problem for me here as we wrap up things.
Words are important in radio. Yes.
They really are. But I'm out of words, Gino. I feel like I hit an absolute brick wall talking about fantasy football, and now all I want to think about is fantasy football or just football.
It's coming.
Yeah.
It's arriving pretty soon. Next Thursday, not this week, but next Thursday will be a Three Heads Brewing. So hopefully you can join us,
yeah, that'll be a good time. Three Heads for another live show, and we'll have the Chiefs and the Ravens to kick off the NFL season a week from Thursday. So join us live at Three Heads if you have no plans. Thursday afternoon. We're all celebrating like it's a holiday. Go ahead and play hooky from work and come and join us. Have a cold one, and we'll have a good time Thursday afternoon, a week from Thursday, for the start of the NFL football season. We'll talk more Buffalo Bills football tomorrow. Bills-centric show with Matt Perino making his usual Tuesday afternoon stop at 3:25, and Nate Gary from the Buffalo Bills radio network stopping by at 4:25.
Yeah, so a lot of Bills talk tomorrow as by the show tomorrow, we'll know where the Bills at least are setting out the initial 53-man roster.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting. I think there's a couple of names on there, Gino, that I know just from your reaction today. Like, hard to get excited about.
Well, I've been saying all along, like, Shavers is the Fisher All-Star. Like, this isn't anything. But normally the Fisher All-Star doesn't make the team.
Yeah. If you missed our conversation with 13-Man Sports, BuffaloPlus.com's Mike Catalana, or Ryan Talbot of NewYorkUpstate.com. You can find those wherever you get your podcasts. Just search out the Sports Bar, and that includes the free-to-download Odyssey app. We appreciate you checking out the video stream on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, on Twitch, our stream at The Fan Rochester as well. You can always get us in the free-to-download Odyssey app. You can get us on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. So the table is set for tomorrow, Gino. Have a great night tonight. Is tonight like our last Monday night without football until...
It is, because you have the one standalone game on college football next week.
Yeah.
On Sunday night, or on Labor Day night, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're getting there. We're closer and closer. Have a great night. We're back again tomorrow afternoon starting at 3 o'clock here on The Fan Rochester. JR Sport Brief next.